Hey, welcome
Right, we got that.
to
Except
the
people are getting water out of the
budget
town
meeting.
office.
96.
Tonight's meeting is a joint meeting with the Budget Committee and the Selectmen to hear the presentation on the various budget items. It's not a voting meeting. Tonight is just for gathering information, and after this, the Selectmen will have their own meeting, come up with their recommendations, which will then come back to us for our recommendations. First order of business, though, is to accept the minutes from the December 19th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
Excuse me, who made the motion to second?
Peter made the motion. What we'll do is we'll follow about the same sequence that we've done in the past, which is to have Don give a very brief overview on what they went through and any major items, and then we'll go through the various line items and have discussions on those. For people in the audience, if you have any questions as we go through, please step up to the podium and I'll recognize you there. When you do that, when I recognize you, state your name and your question, and then we'll move on from there. Don?
All right. Thank you, Rolf. Members of the Budget Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen. It's a pleasure to be here to present the municipal budget for fiscal year 2012-13. This budget is also on the web. If people at home want to follow along, you could pull it up on your computer and follow us as we go through the various sections of the budget tonight. The budget was delivered once again on time on February 10th. It is again, as has been the case for the past half dozen years or so, subject to LD1, which is a limit on municipal spending. It's comprised of two factors: the average real personal income growth, which is set annually by the state, and the local property growth factor, which is a percentage of the increase in taxable valuation from one tax year to the next. Those two factors combined together for Raymond this year give us a total allowed growth of 2.21%. So as calculated by our new contract assessor, Kurt LaBelle, our allowed municipal LD1 levy limit, therefore, is $2,119,213. This year, interestingly, we have been, as you know, trying to get to a situation where we use no undesignated fund balance to reduce the tax commitment. So basically, we're over LD1 by $86,711, and but once again, without fund balance. So that's a big difference. If we were to have used fund balance in the same amount as we did last year, this draft budget would actually be under LD1 by $1,695. A question that comes up every year is, where are we with respect to our overall undesignated fund balance? And the answer is, by both the auditor's standards and the town's own goal, we're in pretty good shape. The auditor's standard, which is 10% of the commitment plus an average of 1 month's expenses, we're just slightly under that, and we are slightly over the town's Board of Selectmen undesignated fund balance by about $334,627. So the goal that the Selectmen set out to accomplish several years ago, which was to hold the tax rate stable, reduce the level of fund balance to subsidize the budget on an annual basis, and to increase the overall fund balance, has all worked together, so for 6 or now 7 years in a row. And I think what helped us to accomplish that was the Board of Selectmen setting performance measures. Now, these performance measures won't surprise any of you. They look pretty similar to what we've seen in prior years, but I'll run through them quickly. The first is to increase the appropriation for capital road improvement work and consider construction financing. This year is new from the Road Improvement Study Committee. We have a new committee that's been impaneled by the Board of Selectmen, as approved by town meeting, to look at our needs and our financial capability and come up with a plan so that we can move forward and try to make some substantive positive changes in our road system, which we know has been neglected for many years. We've tried to on a year-to-year basis to keep up with the deterioration, and that's been not successful. We did a number of years ago take a bond for $950,000 that addressed some needs, but we have this pent-up need for road work. So that's being studied actively by the committee, and we expect a final report to be released sometime this year, and action probably at next year's town meeting. The next goal, which we've accomplished, I outlined earlier, is to reduce the use of fund balance surplus as a revenue to reduce taxes. So in my time here, we've gone from around 400,000 down this year, proposing 0. Develop a core services-driven budget by concentrating funding efforts on legal and mission-required services. No secret that over the past several years, we've made several cuts, changes in service, reductions in force, other changes that have enabled us to reduce the budget and consolidate personnel. There's some of that in this year's budget. Again, we have, next goal, explored privatization and outsourcing of services for cost savings. The most notable one along that line is the Cumberland County Dispatch Center consolidation, which initially staff did not support for various reasons, but it has proven over time to be a very successful merger, and that has really worked to save us money and to improve service. Currently, we're studying, and the study's been dragging on. We're trying to get it out of the box, and I'm sure that the fire chief and the fire department business manager may talk about it. But there's a regionalization study between Casco, Naples, and Raymond that's been underway for a couple of years now, and hopefully we're eventually going to have the results of that study released by the consultants, and then an active discussion amongst the community as to how we could work together to regionalize public safety, that is fire rescue services. The selectmen have asked us to work with our neighboring towns and Cumberland County government to reduce costs and maintain and improve services. We've done that in a number of different areas. We've done it in GIS services, although in this year's budget we're proposing to go in a slightly different direction, but that's one area we've worked with Wyndham. We work and exchange services and have contracts with Fry Island and Gray. Those are actually contracts that we provide service to them for our revenue. The selectmen have said that they want to maintain current service levels in the area of solid waste, recycling collection, support to Raymond Waterways Protective Association, and also the Raymond Village Library. So we've put a priority on that this year and in prior years. We have investigated, next goal, the bonding for capital improvements versus capital reserve budgeting to achieve the maximum utilization of our capital resources. This is an important one, although we haven't had a vote lately. When we did have votes on tax limiting legislation, LD1, the Tabor, Pulaski initiatives, we most often saw the Raymond voters voting in the affirmative for tax limiting legislation. So we try, when we produce our budget, to be mindful of that, and have for a number of years. The next goal is that the department heads, the town manager should all understand that all budgets, any and all budgets, are on the table every year, and that we need to take a clean slate look at everything, including personnel costs, including possible layoffs and reductions in force, which we have done in the past. This year, a new goal is the Board of Selectmen said to the department heads, since we've had a flat budget for 6 or 7 years, tell us what areas of unmet need we should be looking at. Tell us what we've been neglecting, if anything, and build that into your budget. The overarching budget goal has been, and I think even though we got the direction I just outlined, to make sure that we minimize any increase in the municipal portion of the tax rate, which has, as I said, remained flat for 6 years in a row. So I can't emphasize that enough. This Board of Selectmen has, I think, done an excellent job in holding the tax rate, reducing the use of undesignated fund balance, and overall improving the financial health of the town, which will be important should we seek a bond rating for road work, which I think we're going to do. The current breakdown, I always give that every year, of the school, county, and municipal remains pretty much unchanged, so people understand that no matter what you do here this evening, it's not going to probably push the mill rate as much as you might hope. The school comprises about 71% of your tax dollar. The county is about 6%, and the municipal 23%. Good news this year, the county is flat, and I understand the school to be getting additional revenues, so maybe good news in both areas there. Some bad news, of course, is the revenues, as I outlined at the outset. We're recommending in this budget to not use undesignated fund balance or surplus, so we can achieve the selectmen's goal to get that to 0. So that is a decrease of $79,380 over the current year budget. That hole has to be plugged through cuts or other revenues changes you might make in the budget if you want a flat budget. The only alternative is an LD1 override. It'd be a shame to have an LD1 override for such a small amount of money, but I had the competing forces of trying to meet the selectmen's goal, which has been a lot of years coming, versus finding more cuts and more revenues. So that's the goal, that's the job of the selectmen and the Budget Finance Committee, and that's what we're here tonight to do in part. The tax increment financing district or TIF budget has been reduced to $168,078. That's mill rate dependent, and as you know, we've seen some losses in our commercial district. Most notably, Bedtech Chipco is now more a storage facility than a manufacturing facility. That was a significant change. With the overall continued downturn in the economy, we've seen a worsening of TIF revenues. We are, though, as of today, new news today, looking at redeveloping, reconfiguring our TIF if possible with our town attorney, so there may be a possibility to improve that from economic development standpoint, and also to hopefully generate more revenues in order to dedicate them to the outlined goals and objectives within the plan. Our plan is pretty much a soup to nuts TIF, so it's mostly public infrastructure. Examples of things that have happened in the past are the water line expansion, the Route 302 improvement beautification project, the public safety building, paving, and so forth. Those are all things we've done with it. Now I can go. I've given you all this independently, but I can go through briefly the various changes by department, or I can stop.
Probably the best thing to do, is hold that until we get to the individual sections and do it there, because we're gonna,
Okay.
we'll hit those by line item anyway, so that way we can do those as we get to each one and just highlight those. I guess the other thing that should get brought out is that the committee had sent a number of questions through me to Don, and as we go through the review, if they don't specifically get brought up, then we'll address what got asked there, just so that all the information that we have is out for everybody else to have too. I think the responses got sent to the selectmen as well as to us, but that way we can make sure that the people in the audience and the people listening get the same information, so that everybody's dealing from the same sets of facts that we are. I guess we've just moved right into the various department areas, and start with administration. And probably the thing to do is, as we get to the department area, then just give the
Sure.
highlight on that, and then we'll bring out any questions.
In administration, the major, some of the things there are that I'm recommending town-wide a 3% increase in wages, with some exceptions which are outlined in the budget book. The 3% comes from the Northeast Region CPIU, Northeast Region Wage Earner Index in Boston, which is what we followed for a number of years. So that's where that comes from. That's what's being recommended. There are some adjustments for the following positions: General Assistance Coordinator and Deputy Town Tax Collector. Those are to recognize additional work that's being done. The General Assistance Administrator, and this is all by Raymond's standards, I should tell you, it isn't like we're having a big onslaught of GA, but compared to historic levels, there's a lot more requests for general assistance. There's a significantly greater request for Raymond Community Assistance, which is a private fund that we have here to help the worthy poor. So Alice Hamilton, our General Assistance Coordinator, is doing a lot more work, and I think doing a very good job, so we're recommending an adjustment for her. Let's see, that's an hourly adjustment of $1 an hour, and the same for the Deputy Tax Collector. What we're doing with the Deputy Tax Collector, Sue Carr, is that she's agreed to cross-train in the back office functions. Right now, we have just one person, Danielle Loring, who has taken on Town Manager Secretary, Code Secretary, Economic Development, Planning Secretary, Assessing Secretary, General Office Help Person, troubleshooting computers. she's taken on the duties that were once a couple of full-time jobs and a couple of part-time jobs. So what we've tried to do with her is to get her to maybe about 2/3 of what we were paying before when we had all those positions. Now that results in a nice wage for her, but does an exceptionally good job for the town. She's worth every penny in my view. She's really demonstrated her ability and her willingness to step up. But, back to Sue Carr, if for some reason, we hope this doesn't happen, but if Danielle were not available for one reason or another, we have all our eggs in that one person, that one basket, which is, although cost-wise, it's a good deal, and she's very efficient, we don't really have the depth in the back office that we once had, and Chris and I see that when she's out sick or other times that she's not available. So anyhow, that's another change. There was a mid-season adjustment in wage approved for the code enforcement officer. Now, he had an opportunity to leave the town, to put it as simply as possible, for a better, higher-paying position. The selectmen were given an opportunity to adjust his wage to keep him. I think they made the right move doing that. They brought him to a market competitive wage. He's happy, we're happy. He's agreed to stay for the foreseeable future and not seek other employment, and so he's doing a great job. And let's see, the travel and training account is changed, and it's upward for the ICMA conference. The reason for that is because I'm no longer a member of ICMA. If you're not a member, they charge you more for the registration. So we've figured it out, though, and it's cheaper to not be a member and pay more for the conference. So that's what that's about in travel and training. The IRS mileage rate is increasing. Postage and contract service, and the IRS mileage rate is for the employees who don't get a stipend or a vehicle, and I can outline who those are if you want to know. Postage and contract services have increased, and the elections account is increased due to extra ballot printing and machine maintenance. There's an overall increase in this account area of $25,481.
Questions? Mike?
Under the selectmen account, we've got 5 members budgeted at $1,200 a year. I think this happens every year about this time, but I won't be taking my $1,200, so that can be reduced immediately to $4,800. That would be on the first sub-accounts under 0100 salaries. I know there are other board members who have in the past foregone there, so there's a possibility that line will come down. Second comment, Don, could you tell me where we are with the voting machine? I know we've been struggling to save money for a new voting machine, and we have had issues with our old one. I don't remember exactly where that is, if you do.
I would defer to Louise on the current update on that. I know we're working with the state and other communities on a joint purchase, but I'm not sure what the latest is.
The latest I have heard, which was about a month and a half ago, was once more the Secretary of State's office, Elections Division, is going to put out an RFP to buy voting machines that are uniform throughout the state, and that all towns that use machines can purchase one at a reasonable price. We still have $6,500 in the budget for that, and at this point I don't know what these machines are going to cost. Hopefully it won't be over that, but it should set us up for probably the next 15 years anyway, once we get that.
Would we look at 1 or 2 to make sure we
One.
had a backup?
One, because you can always lease them.
You can.
You can always lease them if you feel you need to. Up until now, we haven't had, they're pretty reliable machines. We do a maintenance on them every year. So the company themselves, at least if they go with the company similar to what we're using now, they are almost on site, or could be within a matter of minutes, to help you with any problems the machine have. They flood the state with personnel, so that it's not likely that you'd be down for too long. And of course, they're all battery driven and have automatic backups and all that sort of thing. So they're, even with a power shortage, they still will continue to work.
Thank you.
I've seen communications about bulk water, originally being as a line item on the budget. Has that been removed, or?
It will be. Joe pointed out a few things, and so one of them was that, and wondering why we had the water machine. The answer is that although the office water may test, we haven't tested it lately, but it may test as okay for human consumption, it has a very pungent aroma that is pretty off-putting. Many employees, well, nobody will drink it, and some people don't even like to wash their hands in it. It's sulfur and iron, and I don't believe the town has used it for drinking for 25 or 30 years. So we've had a water machine all that time. But what we were able to do is to work with Poland Spring and to get a donation of bottled water, so we can make do with that. It's just, so that's what we're gonna do, and eliminate the water machine.
Is that a line item that's still currently, is this on this
I
budget?
think it's still in there, but it can come out.
Would it be under this
Um,
section?
I think it was under
Under
supplies.
Supplies?
Maybe supplies, yeah.
Supplies?
It's a small thing, but every little bit adds up, I guess.
It's $300.
Yeah, or $500, what was it now, I forget.
Question on the registry of deeds. You've got the note there that we now have to pay each year for quit claims.
Say that again?
You've got a note in there that we now have to pay each year for quit claim deeds.
Okay. That's a note from the clerk, so I'm gonna say that's what we have to do.
I guess it goes to the heart of one of my big problems with the county tax. When we were going through the whole rigmarole with them, we had multiple communications that went back and forth. Their big shining thing was, well, you have the registry of deeds that we pay for. Well, if we're paying for it here, how can they say we're paying for it? They're giving it to us in the county budget. So I think that needs to get looked at by people again. It seems to me they're charging from both ends that way.
Right, I don't know what they've done with their revenues, but it would be likely to expect that they're, and we've done some of that ourselves with reviewing our building permit fees, our code office fees, but I'm sure the county has gone down through their schedule of fees and said, what can we increase? What do we do that we don't charge for now? How can we charge? So they have done that. And as you say, I mean, if they have a few $100 offset lower, they may well make it through other ways.
Well, it just gets to the point of, what actually are they giving us for what we're paying for?
They're giving us something they used to give us for nothing, right?
Ralph? I think Mike made the point on the selectmen's salaries. I think right now there's only one selectman that actually takes a salary, I think. I'm not positive. But next year, I mean, if you carry that forward, I'm up for re-election and I plan on running. If I win, I'm not gonna take the salary.
Right.
So I think you only need to budget for 2 selectmen salaries versus the full 5.
Okay. Other questions on administration? Charlie? Oh, Charlie, then.
Okay. Just a quick statement, there's a lot to like in this budget, and moving away from the use of the undesignated fund balance, I think, is to be applauded. Number 2, I just want to preface any comments I make going forward throughout this whole process, and I hope this is taken seriously by everyone, that these are figures that we're talking about. They're numbers. We're not talking about people. So when we specifically say we're talking about a salary line potentially for a town manager, we're talking about a town manager, not a specific individual. So I would just like to state that going forward. First of all, under the town manager, a portion of the salary is used to purchase long-term disability insurance. I believe, from what we understand now, and there's other details in the explanations, that does include also the life insurance.
That's in the insurance section.
That's in the insurance section. So those are both included now, as differentiated in the past, okay? Code Enforcement Department, the vehicle fuel maintenance, possibly the town manager could just give us a brief rundown. We've gone and used two different systems, for those of you who aren't aware of using either a stipend or purchasing vehicles through state surplus, which is obviously has generated a good response in the town, and we've done very well at that. So I know recently the former code enforcement officers, I believe those were stipends, and now we're
Right.
providing a vehicle. The thing that concerns me about that, and it's also with any of the buy programs, is that these vehicles, if they're used, in some cases, they revert to the employee. Is that correct? I'm not sure if that's in
Sure,
all
yeah.
cases. So maybe that could be explained.
Yeah, I'd be happy. There's probably more than two. There's probably maybe 3 or 4. I'll try to hit all the different categories of vehicles. The Public Works Director, who is on call 24/7, 365, is provided with a marked municipal vehicle that is purchased by the town. It sometimes can be a new vehicle, but if it's a new vehicle, it's kept for many years. I think the newest of the new is probably getting on to close to 10 years old now that we may have purchased new or near new. The fire chief is provided with also 24/7, 365 response. He's provided with a vehicle, a marked vehicle. That has typically been a state surplus vehicle that we try to buy the best we can in the best repair we can, but typically they have well over 100,000 miles, but they've served us well. We change them out when it makes sense to do so. The code enforcement officer historically has had a stipend. The current code enforcement officer, Chris Hansen, inquired as to the possibility, knowing what he did about the municipal vehicle program, if it would be possible for him to get a surplus vehicle as well at a revenue neutral standpoint, in that we don't spend any more money. We use the money that we'd use for his stipend, and we apply that towards the purchase of a used vehicle for him to use that's marked. He uses it for municipal business, attending meeting and training, but principally municipal business around the town. We've received many positive comments from people that when he drives up with it signed up, it looks good, it looks professional, you know who's there. And so a couple of reasons for that. One is, I mean, he goes on a lot of substandard roads, and he's using his own vehicle, which is hard on his own vehicle. And two, as I said, I think it improves the visibility of the town, and so I decided with the Public Works Director that was a good program, and that vehicle is owned by the town, and that vehicle is sold by bid at disposal or sold via Craigslist. It depends. We've done both things, and so lately it's been mostly through Craigslist. We had a selectman who was a car salesman, and he said, put the price you want to get on the stuff and then sell it to the first person who has the money. So that's what we've done in terms of disposal of those vehicles. My vehicle, I had an automobile stipend. Many town managers do. Many communities actually provide a new vehicle or a lease payment for a new vehicle. When I negotiated my contract a number of years ago, Selectman Bruno reviewed what was happening in other communities, did a survey, found out what was being offered in other towns, and I really am a car guy. I don't mind having a used car. I like having a used car. I put a ton of miles on my car in the course of my town business, and so I have taken to getting a municipal vehicle using my stipend, my money, so it's my money, and it's all laid out in my contract, and how that works, and it has to be retained as a town vehicle for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, if I wish, I can convert it to my own use, which I've done in the past sometimes. Depends on the car. Other times, and then sold and then rolled over and get another one if it's not one that I want to retain. The current one I have, which is an 06 with 140,000 miles, I like, and I'm going to keep another year, I think. So, but I could convert that now if I wanted to my own use and sell it or whatever I wanted to do. But it's once again another revenue neutral situation, something the selectmen did as an incentive or a perk, if you will, and it's not a new car. So I think that covers the categories. Everybody else is on a mileage basis, reimbursement mileage basis.
So I guess to follow up on that one, the auto stipend under 1100 travel and training, $38.99, and I do appreciate even the details of $300 or $500 for bottled water, because when we're trying to get ourselves down to that less than $88,000 figure, every 200 or 300 would matter. That auto stipend by contract is $3,600?
Nancy, that sounds right, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
exactly
that's right.
what's in the contract, but we discovered it should be $300 net rather than gross per month. So that's how it came up. with
So
It hasn't changed since the contract was negotiated. It's just carried. There have been no adjustments on that since the original date of that it was in date of inception.
okay, great. So there's been a change in the calculation,
Right.
which accounts for the $299. Okay, great. That's really what I was going after. And then the final piece is the larger. It's the elephant in the room with the 3%. And I know Chairman Bruno has requested to see various costing of the contract of the 3% versus the 2%, a 2% raise versus a 1% raise. So I think as we go forward, we're probably talking thousands rather than hundreds of dollars by looking at other levels other than the 3%. And though I appreciate the market basket of the Boston Northeast area as a guide, I tend to be fairly consistent with looking at more competitive compensation studies locally as opposed to Northeast regional studies.
It's not actually a compensation study. It's an index that measures the cost of goods and services, takes into account New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, the Boston metro area. I would argue that the cost of fuel is increasing in Maine as it is in Boston. The cost of heating fuel is increasing in Maine as it is in Boston and Vermont and New Hampshire. So that's what it is, and it's meant to adjust wages. And you can argue over what the percentage is. That's a legit argument. And I think it's something like $9,000 or so per percent. $11,000 per percent, and it covers something over 50 employees. So, of course, the people who make, and I'm sure at this point we made, the people who make more get more, absolutely. So, but it does cover a lot of people, and that's what we followed. But you know, I'm sure that the employees, I speak for myself, but I'm sure the employees, if the budget committee and the selectmen felt it was necessary to make a change there to balance the budget, we have loyal employees who are team players, and I expect that they would, you know, be happy with whatever you decide is right.
Steve?
Steve Crockett, my name tag is missing, but I am on the Budget Finance Committee. On page 2 of 4, insurance, the 20% increase. That's only if it's an exact renewal. I mean, 99 or 90% of the small businesses in this state have taken other ways to lower their insurance.
We have done that, and we'll continue to explore that. That 20% increase is based on what we are, and it's a real seat of the pants from our insurance agent. It's not set in stone, certainly. I would argue that it will be significantly lower than that, and the number is taken off, not what's in the budget last year, as you can see. It's taken off of what we actually are spending, which is significantly below the budget number. And the reason is we have explored mechanisms, as you suggest, higher deductibles, and other, you know, we've privatized our insurance. We're one of the few towns that are not with MMA for property casualty and health insurance. So we are looking at ways, and I expect we'll continue to look at additional ways to do things. So you're not looking at a 20% from the budget. It's 20% from what we are currently spending, and we're going to work on that and see what we can do to have that number be a lot closer to even money. I was talking with Joe earlier, and I would be prepared to say that I think you could do that in the budget.
Okay, I'm looking at it, if you're looking at a 20% increase, you're looking at a lot more than 3% increase in their wages. And that's giving them that better. If you're gonna give them the same, you're gonna give them the same policy with a 20% increase coming from the town, that's a lot more than 3% wage probably increase.
That's true, and to that I would say that we have very few employees, only 16 full-time employees. We operate the town largely on part-time per diems, other, you know, positions that don't receive benefits. We've been moving in that direction. We have many people who are multitasking, doing multiple positions. So I would say that within reason, not going crazy, that we should stay with what the market is doing, and we're not doing anything crazy here. We're actually, there are other options that we could do, but that are better, but we're not doing that. We're already at a position with our program that's different, and you know, we're happy with it, and but it's not what some other towns are receiving. And that's our market group, and I think that our employees are worth it. They deserve it. We have only 16 full-time employees. We expect a lot from them. If you do a survey of any neighboring town that's our size and has the seasonal increase that we do, I don't think you're going to find one that runs with 16 full-time employees. So I think they should have a good program.
Joe?
You know, having been involved intimately with insurance programs lately, I think it's important to realize that what the market is showing in Southern Maine is pretty much flat funding or even decreases in most of these markets. This is a pretty small sized group, which is why you're probably going to see an increase, but I would highly doubt that you get into a 20% increase. I mean, market groups of this size are probably seeing anywhere from 5 to 10% increases.
We probably shouldn't have even put that in there, but what we do, I mean, we look at trends, what we're spending, and then we also ask the professionals, and so we asked our health insurance professional what she thought, and she's going to put in a factor that she knows she's going to be good with, and so we'll adjust it downward, and I believe that's what we'll be doing.
And if you remember last year, there was some changes.
Yeah.
There was a health reimbursement account that was put in to save some money, to help the employees on some co-pays, and also to you know, I gotta put my glasses on.
Okay,
to say
well,
that.
we've spent 17,600 out of a theoretical possibility of 48,000.
So, you know, so there's gonna be a very good chance that they're giving some money left over to help decrease that budget line.
Does that go on a calendar year, or is that on the fiscal year?
That's a fiscal year, I believe. Fiscal year,
The
isn't it?
deductible is calendar.
The deductible is calendar year. So you've spent 18,000 through the first 2 months
Oh,
of
no,
this year?
for the that's what we've spent for the fiscal year.
Okay.
But the policies themselves run the fiscal year, or they
No,
run the
they-
calendar year? I'm just trying to get to when will we get closer to what the actual premium rate's going to
When's
be?
your renewal up?
June 30th.
Okay, so
So in a couple of months, we'll.
So it's you know, about 2 months out is when you can start getting
Yeah,
real numbers. So you got another month.
so another month, so by the time we put the pressure on them, see if they can commit to something before.
The fact is that you've only spent 18,000 out of 48,000
Yeah,
with, you know, 4 months to go. You should have a 0 increase on your health insurance.
Charlie?
And I guess a follow-up question to that then, because I know it may be standard or has become standard in some sectors. I know in the small business sector, was it co-pays or deductibles? We put in a what I consider a unique program when we did, Steve, make those market adjustments to try to keep the premium impact down for both ourselves and the employees, because we're paying 85% of the family plan, 100% of the single. And at that point, when one of the options was to lessen the premium, we went with I think a higher deductible program.
Out of pocket.
No, higher deductible.
Higher deductible.
Yeah.
And in that, we then overlaid a program of our own on top of that, I believe, to reimburse for that.
Right.
And so, do I gather that's that 17,000?
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, in a way, if you looked at it, that is somewhat of a unique, and I know Mr. Bruno has a different experience, but for small business, that would have been a unique, I think, response to trying to moderate the impact on both employer and
I don't
employee.
know that it's that unique, it's fairly
fairly
consistent
common.
among the high deductible plans.
Well, high deductible, but what is our deductible?
Well, high deductible under the HIPAA is anything over 3,500. As long as that's related to the max, or to the first dollar cost.
And ours is
3,000 individuals, 6,000.
for family. Yeah. And again, that may be the experience, I don't think that's the experience Ralph, honestly, in
Well,
in
it-
small business.
It is when they go to an HSA setup.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually an HRA setup versus
Yeah.
an HSA.
Yeah.
The group we compare to are other municipalities, and so it is, when compared to other municipalities, very unique and different, and I think effective and not at all typical.
Other questions on the administration side? Let's move into assessing.
We have a decrease there, the principal of $8,777. The principal difference there is that we have the contract assessor at a lesser amount than the previous contract assessor. The other change is that we've decreased some of the assistant line hours and reallocated those across to other budget areas. So we're at a lesser position on that, on this account group. We're very pleased, by the way, with our new contract assessor.
Questions on assessing? Okay, town hall.
We've been making steady progress on the town hall. They say you can't make a purse out of a sow's ear, but I think we're getting close. We've done a roof, we've done a heating system, we've done plumbing improvements, electrical improvements, computer networking improvements, insulation improvements, new doors and windows. You know, you pretty much name it, we've done it. New furnace. So the town office, relatively speaking, for what it is more efficient than it was. And we had also an energy main grant to change out all the lighting to high efficiency lighting. So we've taken a 19th century building and done a lot of work on it at, I think, fairly low margins, but the building is still serviceable, attractive enough, and works for us, and now more efficient. So that's where you see the decrease.
Done the heating oil, is that a multi-year contract, or is that just 1 year, or?
One year.
1 year.
Charlie?
I guess this is a general question. I notice in the contract services, there's the mowing of the town office. Now, we have several places where we do mowing. Is that just one contract that we put
Right,
out?
and I'm gonna announce at the next meeting, that's going out for competitive bids, and has not been out for competitive bids for a number of years, I don't believe, so. Nathan White, our Public Works Director, could speak to that if you have detailed questions, but I will be making an announcement about that.
So that would include the cemetery mowing, the 302 corridor mowing.
That is correct.
Any others,
All the
Nate?
town mowing and the snow blowing and 302 snow removal.
And that will be included in the mowing,
One-to-one contract.
and all under one contract, great.
I see where this is where that water and water cooler rental line is in the town hall supplies.
Yeah.
For the value of $540
Right.
towards that line item. So that's
Yeah, we
gonna
got the
disappear.
water now from Poland Springs,
So that's gonna disappear and change.
yeah, that can disappear. You know, we have, well, I guess we are doing some, so I probably should tell you about this. We have, right now, getting some pricing on some minor renovations to the front counter. For a long time, there have been, you know, some concerns over the amount of space and the functionality of that space. So we're looking at improving the counter area, and Nathan's getting some bids on that, getting some information on that, and we may let a contract soon on that. I don't know beyond that what might be might be on the horizon. One never knows with an old building, and $3,000 isn't a lot of money, but I don't know if there's any potential to cut that. Nate, do you know? No?
That, all the building maintenance on that building, the capital improvement stuff comes out of our CIP facilities maintenance.
Okay.
The $3,000 that's in that is for the furnace cleaning, general light repair, stuff like that.
And there's no way to change, that's pretty much what it
That's
takes.
pretty tight.
Okay.
Other questions on the town hall?
We're not making any bond payments on it.
I would hope not. Insurance?
Okay. Well, we talked about the health insurance, and that's the major issue there. We may have a small increase in property insurance and a small decrease in workers' comp. One thing, this relates to vehicles. I should tell you also that we get a set figure, so when we add and subtract vehicles throughout the year, there's no difference in cost. So we don't get a surcharge if we add them or a break if we delete them. So that's how that works. Because sometimes we have when it makes sense to us, we have added a vehicle or two.
Mike?
So, if we bought more vehicles, would we get more revenue from the excise? Could we self-fund?
We don't pay excise on the municipal vehicles, but, yeah. I've been accused by some of being a good used car dealer, so I guess we could buy vehicles and flip them, although I think Gardner got in trouble doing that. They bought $250,000 worth of cars one time and flipped them, and that's what changed all the regs years ago. It was a great plan the first time they did it. They took $250,000 and made it like $400,000, the next weekend. The state thought it was a bad idea. So, you can't do that. But we have been successful in flipping our vehicles. We're trying to make them as close to revenue neutral as we can. Buy low, sell high. Sell them before they're repair problems for us.
Do we have a list of how many vehicles we have?
Absolutely do. Absolutely have a list of vehicles. We can ship that out if people want to see it. And I would tell you that compared to towns our size, not only do we have probably fewer vehicles, but they're considerably older and with more miles. But because we selectively pick them and we put a lot of thought and effort into it, we've been able to run with very little capital expenditure. As I said, the newest vehicles we have are almost 10 years old now. How much longer we can do this, I don't know. We've been doing it successfully throughout this 6-year period for sure. And other towns, by the way, and I'll make a pitch for the fire department, although they're expensive trucks, when the fire department buys a truck, unlike other towns, they don't ship a crew of people to Florida to go on a junket and add chrome and little Alcoa wheels and horns and sirens. Our town buys a demo and has it delivered by the manufacturer. No junket. We buy a plain Jane truck that has all the features we need, has some miles on it, and then the chief does things like negotiates for extra set of tires, negotiates for extra equipment because we're getting a used truck, negotiates for an extended warranty. One year we were the only town that in the entire country, we didn't end up getting the grant, and there's issues behind that. We initially were approved, but we were the only town in the country that said we wanted to buy a used truck. Nobody else wanted to buy a used truck under the grant program. They thought that was very unusual. We said we want to buy a used truck to save money. So the fire department does that with even their major equipment. The big squirt truck is in a demo, I guess you could call it, if other fire departments would say it was a used truck. And they wouldn't accept it. They'd say, our volunteers will quit if we have to use an old truck. But we don't run it that way.
What happens after the first time you run it? It's used.
We say, here's the truck. It meets our needs. This is the truck.
Under rescue billing, something's not jiving there. On the income statement, we're showing projected of $140,000, but then you're showing $12,000 for paying for the rescue billing, which would equate if you had $150,000 on income, but not $140,000. So one of the two numbers isn't right.
I like to underestimate the revenue.
Well, that's fine, but I mean, if we should be in balance between the two.
It'd be 11.2.
Yeah. I mean, if we make more, then we can, then you can offset paying more. But right now, we're showing we're paying more than we're gonna. Charlie?
Probably a question better for Nancy. When you calculated the 3% increase versus the 2% versus the 1%, and it was 11,000 per percent, did that calculation include the payroll-driven expenditures that would cap it under Social Security, the big ones, and workers' comp? So those are in there. So we now know, going to those various numbers, what those impacts would have. on the total budget. Okay, thank you.
Marshall?
Nancy, if I can, Nancy, on the income on rescue billing services, you have it at 140,000. Is that a gross number? Is that a net number? Does that include uncollectibles? What does that?
That's what we actually collect.
What is the actual billed amount, do you know?
No, I'm sure we can get that figure.
I think it's available.
Yeah, it's got it.
Just curious what
Kathy
the
Gosselin
loss-
is here.
Kathy Goslin,
Thank you, Kathy.
EMS Director. I have this past month, so this is for January 2012. Year-to-date at this time, and this is our fiscal year, okay, it was $128,000 in charges, okay? Payments received were $89,000 plus. Refunds of $192. But adjustments, where you call the write-offs, or adjustments that need to be made under Medicare, Medicaid, because you can't bill them the full amount that you can bill other insurance companies, is minus $30,000. So when Nancy budgets that, she's just giving what we get actually in payments, not including the write-offs that we do.
I remember discussions in years past about the difference between the gross and the net billing, and that's why I asked the question. Thank you for the answer.
Are we having a lot more write-offs than we've had in the past? Because if we look at the income line on that, we were projecting 160 or so in a couple of years ago, and that's been working its way back down, and we're down to 140 now. So I'm just wondering, but it doesn't appear we're doing less runs. So are we? It either says we're doing more write-offs or
We're sending
higher on
less to
collectibles.
collections, but we're not collecting. We were never collecting much from collections anyway, and it just seems we got a lot of calls for care for people that don't have insurance, that we end up writing off more than we used to. And I think that's a sign of the economy, that there's more people out there without health insurance right now. Okay?
Is there any intention made either by Prime Care or by the town for those who don't have insurance to still bill and collect?
Yes.
Or is it just immediately written off?
No. I go through a process with, and it's not Prime Care anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was Prime Care years ago, with medical reimbursements in the town of Wyndham.
Okay, thanks.
I go through a process with them. They try to collect. They do at least 3 statements to the company. Then there's a letter that says, this may go to collections, please contact us. When they get to the point where they feel it's uncollectible, the company, they then send it to me, and then I research everyone to see what the situation was, where the people live, if they live in the town of Raymond, if they live out of town, or that, and make the decision as to which ones go to collections or which ones get written off.
Thank you.
Charlie?
I just want to make a point on the ICMA Retirement Corp line. For those of you, and this supports some of the discussion we've already had about our health insurance program, which years ago we implemented a program that would try to reduce the number of employees that we would have taking the health insurance from the town by offering them some kind of incentive. And I think we'd all agree that we have 2 employees who are taking the incentive program at a total expenditure of $4,800 thereabouts. And in fact, just those single plans, if either of those employees were on single plans at 100% reimbursement from the town, that would be significantly greater in premium. So I do agree that there are some unique items within our health insurance plan that I think mostly were driven, and we all know that's such a large number. It's driven by being creative and changing to the environment and the market. So it just leaves the door open for keeping that same process in place to try to stay ahead of the curve. It's not easy.
Any questions on the insurance account? Okay. General assistance.
Well, we're asking for no increase there, and and of course 50% of the money is reimbursed to the town by the state of Maine. I will tell you, though, that because we have the Community Assistance Fund, and Raymond residents have been very generous in giving private funds to it, we have around 19,000 or so, I think, roughly, thereabouts right now, because it's been significantly higher at other times. But we are able to help the people who would be, working poor, elderly people who can't qualify for general assistance because the limits are, general assistance really is a program of last resort. If you're applying for general assistance and being approved, then you really are poor. You are suffering extreme levels of poverty. But I would tell people out there, if you are having difficulty with things like heating fuel, that was the original impetus, things related to life safety, please come see us, and we may be able to help you with this private money. And that's what you're seeing, a lot more action and activity in the Community Assistance Fund, probably than the General Assistance Fund. And we hope people will continue to give money too. That's the other thing. We hope people continue to give, because it doesn't generate from the town budget, it generates from private giving.
Brian?
Don, is there any way to have private donations into that program get a match or a reimbursement from the state? Or does it have to be municipal
No,
dollars?
it's just GA.
Okay.
Just GA. But interestingly, and I'm not saying we're the first one, but we were one of the first towns, and I didn't know that it would work. I figured, ask people to give you money to help people who are in need, probably not going to work. But the selectmen encouraged me to do that and said, Raymond will probably step up, and Raymond did step up, and we ended up getting a significant amount of money from a great number of people. I mean, some were big contributions, let's say order of magnitude, maybe larger ones, 3,000 or 5,000, but there were people who gave $100, $50, things like that. So next thing you know, we had a flush account, and I was proven wrong, that the private sector people will step up to help the worthy poor and neighbors. And so that program caught on, and a lot of other towns now do it. It's all over now.
Questions on GA? Charlie?
Do we know how much has been expended in this fiscal year out of that account?
We do. I don't, but we do. Nancy does.
Less than 6,000, I can tell you that right now. You're talking GA?
Right. No, the
Community Action Fund.
Community Action Fund.
Several $100s, that's all I can come up with at the moment.
We could get a detail on that. We actually, I'm not encouraging, and then I am. People who are in need should come see us. We have funds, and we do, as the word spreads, see more people, but there is capacity now, and so if people are suffering, they should come see us. Because we take applications, you don't fund every one, because there is a level of due diligence to make sure, and, but we are, it's pretty difficult to explain the whole process here, but we try to be, fair, but also responsible with the town money, and to try to help people to have with general assistance or community assistance, how can we help you not get on an ongoing basis with the town, but how can we give you a lift up and help you to get a plan, a life plan, and move forward. Sometimes that doesn't work, but other times it does.
I think the only thing that might beg the question on is, do we have to, as a select board or as the town as a policy, look at the criteria, because we're generating this 19,000, we're only putting out hundreds. And so maybe it speaks to a question that needs to be asked.
Well, hundreds right now, over time, there have been other hundreds, and so hundreds equal thousands over time, but I don't think it's a bad thing that there's a significant reserve fund. I'd be more concerned if we had expended it down to zero and had need we couldn't meet. But many people are very proud, obviously, and they don't want to come to the town, and so I'm not saying we seek people out, but if we come upon a situation through our fire rescue department, through our code department, then we actually try to help people. We outreach too.
Any other questions on GA? Technology department.
The $15,000 for contracted GIS service has been moved to the community development account. That's a proposal that our CEO, Chris Hansen, came to, and I'll let him give some more detail on that. But we had, for the last couple of years, worked with Wyndham on GIS services, which was working out very well. There was no issues with that, except we were running out of reserve funds to fund it, and The other issue is that our longtime planner, who we think, by the way, is an excellent planner, Hugh Cox, had accepted a full-time job with the state of Maine, so his availability was quite limited. And then the next thing that happened was, of course, we had the advent of the Raymond Revitalization Committee, although not a town committee per se, a group of private citizens who are working on strategies and trying to help with some solutions to improve the general business environment and economy. So we had need there. So we said, well, perhaps what we should do is we should put all three things together and look at a new consultant, and that's what we're proposing. Maybe I've said it now. Is that it, pretty much? Yeah. We think this could give us a couple of days anyway. We'd try to get 3 days, but we don't know. We think at least a couple of days of service. And in office hours, that's what we were lacking with Hugh Cox. Hugh was increasingly unable to give us office hours. And there are people who can do all three things. They can do planning services, they can do economic development consulting, and they can do GIS work. So there are people who do that. GIS today is not a specialty, it's integral to planning. So all planners, all certified planners can also do GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems. The most notable project we're working towards is updating our road database so that moving forward we can track and measure the work that we do and project costs and try to figure out where we should put our spending effort. And we're going to use the Maine Road Service Management Program as opposed to a very expensive private sector program. We're going to use the one that was done by Maine DOT. And although it's not what Kevin would like, there are better ones. This one will be adequate, and it's orders of magnitude less expensive. So that's the major GIS project that's coming. It's underway, but really coming over the next year or two, some more. We have the old study in the database now. We'll be updating it.
Right. Questions on technology?
I guess the other thing I'll tell you is that we have a overall decrease because of that move of 11,942, and our contract technology director, network administrator, is at the same rate he has been for the past several years.
Mike?
Not sure if this is technology now or it's only technology once I ask my question. Reader board. We lost a long-time volunteer for our town reader board. We have had a reader board that is designed and wired and ready to go if we were to put an insert in it to become electronic, which could then be controlled by a computer. I think we've talked about this for years. I don't know if there's any money being set aside to, each year to raise for that. I also think of the visibility we have on Route 302, which is also not a reader board that is electronic at the Public Safety Building, but probably would be a great asset to the town in getting the word out on either meetings or things that need to be updated. We did have a volunteer come forward. Unfortunately, the volunteer who came forward then proceeded to fall and break an arm. And so they couldn't do the reader board anymore. So
Not while she was doing it.
Not while she was doing it. No. Thank you for the yeah. No.
What's happening now is that staff is going out there and, in winter boots and jackets and getting it done, but it's less than optimal. I mean, we wanted to go to the so-called whiteboard technology, which is very expensive, but it's really the only way to go if you care at all about aesthetics. If you don't, then you do what some neighboring towns have done. You get what my old town attorney used to call eye burner signs. There's some of those down in Wyndham. There's one in Gray, I think, that really jumps at you with a black background and either a red or an orange LED kind of thing. You could do that probably for less money, but we don't think that really fits in with the character of Raymond. But that is cheaper. The Route 30, maybe that's a solution for Route 302 because the Naples Fire Department has one. I don't know about Wyndham. Do they have one? Maybe they do. So that sign at the Public Safety Building maybe could be more of a kind of a commercial sign, but I think to me, it's somewhat important that the one at the town office look decent.
Well, I guess I'm not sure exactly where you're thinking about putting that money or finding that money, but that would seem to me a logical thing if you actually can find an increase in the TIF, that it get funded under there. I mean, it fits the requirements of what we wrote when we wrote the TIF, so That way you're not really looking at trying to raise and appropriate, you're looking at covering it under there, so you're not looking at an increase that way. Mike?
Well, the reason I bring it up is, when the board said, what do we need? You know, we were asking department heads, what do we need? And I read Don's letter, and I know that the staff understands the economy and stuff, and I expected to see that in there based on all the discussion we have had in the last year about the reader board. My thought on public safety is you do two at once rather than doing one. You network them all and you've got it. I didn't see it. There are a couple other things as we go through the budget that I was hoping to see from staff that I want to bring up at this level. If there's no interest, there's no interest here, but I'm trying to find out why, if we talked about it 3 or 4 times throughout the year, it wasn't in the budget.
Yeah,
There's not even a mention of putting some money aside to start raising it. That's why I brought it up.
We did have an internal discussion at a department head meeting, and basically the reason is, and probably we should have, I agree with you, it probably should have been addressed, there should have been maybe some money working towards a goal, but the reason is just that the technology that we want is cost prohibitive. Well, we thought it was cost prohibitive. Do you remember what that figure was, Louise? You were working with Kevin on it.
There isn't a firm number, but he was talking in the range of 40 to 50,000.
So it's serious money.
That was for the whiteboard,
That was for the whiteboard.
and then it went down from there based on
Yeah, the black,
colors of
red
it.
on black or whatever was 18 to 20, I think.
Right, so maybe half the money to do one of those.
But this would provide, you just write your message on the computer and it goes out to the side.
And maybe black and orange, which is what you see, say, at the Gray Public Safety Building, maybe that isn't so bad.
And part of this is, you know, school cancellation, boom, it's up. You know, it's in 2 locations. You control it. It is just, I would think it would be great for public safety if they needed to override the one at Town Hall. It kind of goes back to my comments last year at this point. What are we not doing as a town? Because we are always trying to be a flat-funded budget. What are we not thinking about or not keeping up that makes Raymond special? And, you know, I understand some of the frustrations of other board members when, you know, even the meetings aren't changed because we don't have the volunteers and because we have staff doing so many different things, we just add another thing to staff because we lose a volunteer. Well, then it doesn't get done. So I bring that up as something to think about, and I assume technology would be the place to put it on if we were to talk about something.
Probably technology, or if you considered it, you know, town office, you put it under the town office and then under public safety for them, but it comes, ultimately we look to technology department and Kevin for advice on all things like this. So historically, probably in technology.
Brian?
You'll notice a trend here. I keep looking for money elsewhere. Any Homeland Security monies or anything like this? Because this just seems like a perfect thing where you could apprise a town quickly of an issue, especially on
I think the new chief and Dennis, our business manager, are going to talk about what's happening with that environment. The days of federal Homeland grants are over.
Okay.
Intergovernmental revenue from the federal government is over. We've been very fortunate. We've gotten a lot of improvements, which they'll outline, but that's over.
Okay. Charlie?
On the sub-account 0400 cable broadcasting salaries, I know 2 years ago that was a volunteer position. That was at 3,600, and then I believe it went to last year as we brought on a paid staff to do that, or a contract staff to do that work. I believe it was it $9,600? So this is representing another increase in that line. And I look at all those figures, the extra hours and all. How many, just roughly, how many meetings a year are we? I know there's ancillary time involved with whether doing the playback and the station manager aspect of the job.
We're trying to broadcast basically every municipal meeting, you know, meetings that are held during the day, meetings in the evening. Certainly if you decided you didn't want to do that, we could reduce it, but I look at this as more an evolutionary change. We have the digital broadcast studio, we know people watch it, we know people appreciate it, we have a lot of comment about it. we have a person who's doing an excellent job for us, and Dominic, who's here tonight, Dominic Diamond. So, this is one of those things where, you get what you pay for. If you invest and cover the meetings, then you can use the technology more fully. I would tell you we're not even using probably 10% of the capabilities of this broadcast studio. Most communities, not our size, but many, let's say many communities, not much larger than us, have a full-time staff that numbers more than one. I think there's at least 2 in Wyndham, I'm pretty sure of that. And I won't comment on Wyndham, but other towns have their community action channel, and they have a paid person that runs it on more of a full-time basis. So we're trying to do what they're doing with less time and effort, but certainly pay a fair and reasonable wage. And I can tell you the increase is being proposed because we trained the person who does the schoolwork, and the person who does the schoolwork continually relies on our person. And so it seemed illogical that our person was being paid a lesser wage just because he worked for the town of Raymond. We decided it was more reasonable to pay a market average wage, something more competitive, because he had proved himself to be a good person and an effective person. And so that's what we did. And you can go to the straight volunteer system. We could try that again. We tried that before. When you do that, the town is not in control.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't think, maybe I misinterpreted where your question was coming from, but I don't think it was as much, why are we doing it, but your question was, how many meetings are we doing and whatnot?
We're doing every meeting we can. That's the answer on that one.
Because, I mean, when we kind of roll the clock back a little bit and look at it, we made this decision starting to go down the road when we got rid of the Roadrunner, when we got rid of, when a lot of the print media and things like that started falling away. This was a perfect way to get the information back out to people. So, I mean, we certainly don't want to be retarding information. We want to make sure that we can get whatever we can do to get more information out there. So.
I think that the gist of my question was on the how many meetings. I'm trying to do the math because I believe we made a presentation to the town of Casco to provide them with some of our videographer services and going over to Casco and spending time there and allotting 2 hours per meeting and then coming back and getting 2 hours of production time.
Yeah, that's all over. Casco went with Lake Region TV, which is a different entity altogether.
Right.
So we're not doing anything with Casco. Everything we did do with Casco was paid for by Casco.
Right. And as I recall, the unit price on that was around $100 for...
Just for a demo, we were trying to just cover our costs. We wanted to encourage regionalization. We wanted to show them what we're able to do. I think we do offer a far superior product, but we're not really set up for mobile service. We're set up to do it here where we have all the technology, and they want to have it in Casco naturally. So we're not really set up to do what they want. And we did it at I won't say a loss leader, but we did it at a price that would be affordable for them to see what we could do. And we took remote cameras there and produced a meeting or 2 for them, and so they ended up going with Lake Region because Lake Region is a different thing altogether. We don't have that. They're a separate nonprofit that has many people who volunteer, and they fundraise, they do other things. We just don't have that in Raymond. It's very unique. Wyndham doesn't have that. I don't know any other place that has a standalone nonprofit that says, geez, we're going to come cover you.
I guess my point was traveling to Casco, doing all that, coming back here, doing the production. It was around $100 per meeting, so I was trying to figure if we were doing 100 meetings at $100 and it was right here and we have the trained staff and it's all concisely compacted into
the
there.
Casco thing doesn't relate to anything. It was just a number pulled out of the hat for them.
Yeah, so I was just taking 100 times 100, and that was a $10,000 item as opposed to a 12.3 item. That was the only basis I had without trying to compare ourselves to the Wyndham
This number is
videographers.
based on the number of meetings on average we did times the rate, including all the pre-production, post-production work that needs to happen. The setup tonight didn't happen by magic. Dominic set it up, got everything working, tested. He was here in advance to do that. He'll be here to break down. He'll have time to, and he's very efficient at it and has come up with many improvements with Kevin's assistance. The amount of time that is actually involved in digitizing and rebroadcasting is down significantly. But the rate is up because we're recommending that we pay somebody, once again, somebody who does a good job, we pay him a market rate.
I don't dispute any of that, no, at all. I guess my only follow-up would be to that, the hourly adjustment to reflect the market, how did we approach those markets? Did we use Wyndham?
We use Wyndham and the Wyndham School Department, Raymond Wyndham School Department, who we trained and continue to assist. And so that's sort of the base that we used, yeah.
Brian? Ralph, one quick, Don, one quick question. In terms of, do we have any sense of, have we ever done any kind of polling of the Raymond residents to have an understanding of how many people watch, who watches? Because one of the things that's happening is there is an incremental amount that's going up, and it continues to rise because that's the realities of it. And I'm just wondering about the value, and do people see it as a perceived, is the
Well,
value
I think
perceived?
Kevin, I think can, through with Time Warner's help, measure the throughput, the number of, sets that are tuned.
Okay.
I think he can do that. We could ask about that. But I can tell you that all I really have to go on is anecdotal. Wherever I go in town, people say, "I saw you on TV." What a wonderful, smart thing you said. No, they don't usually say that. They say all sorts of things, and they say, "Boy, those guys are brilliant." They say all sorts of things.
That's because Dominic does an outstanding job in post to fix it all up.
People do watch it and do comment on it and do follow it, and I don't know how many I could find out, but it's more than a few. It's more than a few. If you're somebody who's known as a public figure, I guess, and you travel throughout the community, you'll hear about it.
And you can also, not only can you watch it on Time Warner, but you can stream it on your computer.
Right, we do have many people who are snowbirds who stream it.
Okay.
And so we actually get reports from places like Florida and Arizona regularly on our activities. So we sometimes get emails from people during the meeting who's, they say, watching the show or whatever, or watch the last show, this sort of thing.
Thanks.
Yeah. When is it gonna be up? Sometimes you get that message. When's this gonna be on? Yeah.
Other questions on technology? Community Development and Services.
We've got an increase in this account due to the combining of the contract planner with the GIS and Economic Development Services, and the hours, again, for the secretary. We've rebalanced that. And then there's also an increase, and I'm not sure what the level of increase, I'm guessing not very significant, but we do have a GP COG. For those who don't know, GP COG is Greater Portland Council of Governments. Mike Reynolds, Selectman Reynolds, has been very active on that and probably can answer any questions about what they do and how they do it. But they're basically a agency of municipal government that provides collective services in areas like planning, transportation planning, economic development. They provide joint bid municipal services of various kinds, consulting of various kinds. They do corridor and trail studies, and they do grant work and other things of assistance to the town. I think I've covered most of it, hopefully.
$830 increase.
830, okay, yeah. So and I don't think they've increased for a while. I think they were flat for a while.
Last year, if I remember, Mike, they held it steady, and then this year they
Yeah.
gone up.
This does not represent an increase in dues. It represents an increase in population that is based on the census. So this is the first dues increase since 2000, and it is based on $1 per capita, basically. So the dues is still $1 per person. They always do it 2 years after the census when they get the new census data, so that's where the increase is coming from. They use the money from dues, which if you think of Greater Portland basically being Cumberland County, their dues is somewhere in the range of, high 200,000, so almost $300,000 from dues. Their annual budget is in excess of $4 or $5 million, and they use our dues to match federal grants for planning, for transportation, for those kinds of things. Don, did you mention the co-buy program? Is that where we get our salt?
Right, the joint bidding. We participate in a number of different bids, and they do things like salt, and we don't participate in all of them, but salt and tires and office supplies and furniture and what else, Nancy? things like that.
Like you say, we don't get involved at all in like paper, because we're just not big enough to,
Right.
and we don't have storage.
And sometimes Nathan can beat their prices too, so they'll give a price, they bid it by the, by town within Cumberland County, and if we can get a better price, then we do, but if we don't, we go with it. So we don't always take it, depends on if we can, we try to get a better price if we can, but sometimes not.
I can give you a little bit more. I'm the current chair of GPCOG, and we are looking to provide more direct services to towns, even if it's on a per town cost basis or a sharing basis, much like Don has explained that, we do stuff for Fry Island and Gray and work together. GPCOG is looking to actually create a grant position that would look for grants for our towns and help the towns write the grants, identify the grants. And so they would be a full-time person that is constantly looking for grants for our membership as part of dues. And if they wrote the grant and got the grant, that's how the person would be funded. But, a town Raymond size, we don't have somebody dedicated to look just for grants. Now, public safety's done great. They look, they hear about them, but are we missing some? Could we find funding for, a reader board from something, or, if you've got that type of thing. So we are looking to do that in our next budget. GPCOG is also looking for interest in the possibility of doing an economic development person that would possibly say work 1 day a week in Raymond, 1 day a week in somewhere else, and providing a full-time person that concentrates on economic development, but that a town can't afford full-time. I know Don is proposing his thing, but again, what do small towns need that if 4 or 5 got together could be housed through GPCOG, but spend a day here, a day there. So as GPCOG goes forward, that's how they're looking to help their members even more, is in some sort of joint services as opposed to just the joint purchases.
Since I know they're interested in that, I'll be sure to send them a copy of the RFP. We're also going to send the RFP to Wyndham because we think they have the capability. Whether they have the desire, we don't know, but they certainly have planning, economic development, and GIS services. So we'll send one to GPCOG too. And you don't have to bid on the whole thing. You can bid on a piece of it. We prefer to have the whole thing, but we'll definitely send them a copy of that.
Does GPCOG contract on fuel oil, or?
Yeah, there's about 20, I think we're up to 22 different bulk purchases that happen all year round. I can't even remember all of them, and I don't have my book here, but fuel oil, salts,
Office paper just came
office
out.
paper, yeah.
Are we presently using any of them? Have they been
Joint purchases?
Salt.
just the salt?
Salt tires, we do our tires through COG.
Okay.
The last 3 years asphalt, we haven't done through them, we put it up outside of COG. Salt's a big one for us.
Other questions on community development? Charlie?
Under 0025, the economic development portion, we took out of, I believe, the undesignated fund balance, $3,800 for this fiscal year. Is that where that original, because the request was for 76, and we,
I don't know. Nancy, can you help me with this one?
it was 30, in this fiscal year, Nancy, I believe the Board of Selectmen went to the undesignated fund balance for $3,800, or it might have been just money that was already allotted to community development. $3,800 for Hugh Cox to support the Raymond revitalization.
Yes.
There was $3,800. So should I be assuming that that $3,800, because the anticipation was that would come to us in this budget for another $3,800 or $7,600, that's
No.
that's incorporated in this $36,500?
No, the selectmen, well, I guess yes and no. That's a decision you could make. The selectmen have, I guess thinking about it now, the selectmen authorize an amount of money, but we haven't utilized but very little of it because of Hugh's inability to provide the services. So you could go one way would be, you have that approval, or you could say that's lapsing and it now needs to be built in this budget. You got a choice that way, I guess. We're going in the direction of that authority prevails, but if you wanted to, you could say that expires and we're going to build it into the budget.
So that 3,800 is a carryover, would that be encumbered and become part of this 36.5? Or can we encumber that money and take 3,800 off of the 36.5? I guess is my question.
I don't know the answer. Nancy, do you know?
Whichever way you choose to do it.
I guess it's whatever you want to do, yeah.
And that wouldn't probably have any significant impact on this year's fiscal budget. But potentially we could lower this number by 3,800. Possibility, I'm just throwing it out there for consideration.
Yeah, if you said that that money didn't expire and you were going to carry it over, then yeah, you could, I guess.
Other questions? Fire and EMS.
Well, we have I think we have our new chief here somewhere.
He's hiding in the back corner.
So, I mean, I could give you the Reader's Digest version, but I'm sure he wants to, given his first time out, he wants to give you the brass button approach.
There we go. There we go. Well, our budget is essentially remaining the same as last year, with the exception of the payroll line item, which is an increase in it of 3% based upon the information we received from the town manager. That line is adjusted up as a 3% COLA, basically to start getting our members back to where they were prior to the cuts that we made in the past, where we actually took stipends away and when we took away dollars per hour in standby pay, actually, to our members so that we could maintain a flat budget. This is our effort to try to get them back up. We did a 2% raise last year. Other than that, what we did, and we were fortunate enough to get some grants, as you spoke of earlier, we were able to get a grant for turnout gear this year through the federal program. Last year was the SCB, 2 years ago was SCBA's. We've also had some radio grants, et cetera, for some small items like that, and numerous others. These grants we've been fortunate to receive them, and it's allowed us to move money within our lines so that we can use that monies to accommodate changes in our economy or needs in the department, such as fuel and items like that. So it's allowed us the flexibility to maintain a flat budget, which has worked out very well for us. So you can see some of the lines that have been adjusted. Our fuel line operations went up a little bit, and there's some reasons for those line items being adjusted up. Obviously, fuel with the projected costs that we're seeing out there was the driving force there. We went up on our operations line, and that's to accommodate some medical equipment, which is now being mandated, lactic acid monitors and things like that have some substantial price tags to them, are mandated this year in the protocol. Purchasing will have to take place in the next budget season. Bone drills, things like that, the money actually costs $100 per needle for that, I believe it was. And we're using those very routinely now. So our protocols and our practice has changed for the better for the patient, but it's also more costly to perform some of these actions. As you look through, there's a couple other lines that we did adjust. Of course, we took the turnout gear line and we took it down because like I said, we received a grant and we were very fortunate to receive that. So we adjusted it down this year, knowing that the gear we got is timelined. It's a 10-year item. It's retired at 10 years. Some of it before then due to wear and tear. And so we were able to play with that line a little bit. Just looking at what else we had for increases. Basically, that was it. We moved it basically to all the operations, to operations and fuel. Again, one of the things we were fortunate at getting a couple years back was an energy main grant, energy efficiency grant. We were able to insulate the station, and that's helped us control our cost of heating at the station. And I think you see that reflected in this budget proposal as well.
questions? Charlie?
First of all, Chief, I want to thank you for addressing an issue I brought before the Select Board 2 months ago regarding the issues we had on communications over in North Raymond. And I see in your letter, your cover letter, you will address that out of the CIP.
Or another mechanism.
Or some
Yes.
other mechanism, because right now, the status, this town did pass and rewrote our ordinances in order to put a cell phone tower on top of Raymond Hill that is as yet not even gone
Correct.
before the planning board. We're not sure when or even if. It may be some other information that came before us on Crown Castle. This might be just a pure case of aggregation, that cell phone companies grab the highest places that they can. And that'll come up in future discussions on Crown Castle, but I appreciate that, because we all knew as a community, as soon as you had mentioned that was going to cover a significant hole or gap in our public safety. We can't wait on the whims of US Cellular or their aggregator as to whether we protect the citizens.
Exactly, and to further that discussion, I mean, there's other proposals that may be coming along, or other options that may be available to us, and we are exercising and looking at all of those options without ruling any of them out. Some may come with more cost than others in the future, and we have to include that in our planning.
And then just the other question, under the fire rescue payroll 0100, does that include the model that we are now presently under with the business manager?
It does. Now, it doesn't. July 1st, our business manager will go to a totally volunteer position. Yes, and remain active as the business manager for the department. Something that was decided, and I don't know if you want to address that when you speak, and I'll just leave it as a simple overview, but something that we decided a short while ago, and I think that will work out, and it allows us to use that funding for the rest of the payroll for our admin.
I don't have the accounting detail, but I did want to point out that our former chief, Dennis Morris, was given a stipend, and vehicle stipend and some allowances that way, but he has consistently, over the past several years, given up pieces of his compensation so that he could make up for what we were not doing for other people, and so now he's going to zero, which I think is very laudable. So I think people should understand and know that, and so that's how we're able to improve, hopefully, over time, sometimes the compensation of some of our members, volunteer members, paid volunteer members, but have it be revenue neutral. So I thank Dennis for giving up his stipend, and very generous.
And
I also have an item that I'd like to hand out or email, and preferably, I didn't bring enough of them, and I apologize for that, but it's our total salary package for all of our members of the department, so that everybody can see what they make out of disclosure per person, et cetera.
And as long as we're on that topic, we decided this year, because of, once again, the budget difficulties and so forth, I talked to Bruce about the idea of, he's managing one of the major departments of the town, he ought to be a salaried employee. We should negotiate a reasonable salary and have him be there. And of course, the risk for that is what happened to Nathan, which is he negotiated a reasonable salary and still works a zillion hours. So we try to do something that would be fair and compensate Bruce well, but also recognize the fact that he does have to put in extraordinarily long hours sometimes, and hours that I certainly don't keep, and very few people keep. So, but I decided that maybe we do that, address that issue next year, run it one more year this way. So, if you provide the detail, I think that'd be good.
Exactly. Does anybody not have email? For those who don't,
Send it to Rolf, and he'll send it
I'll
out.
send it all out to you in email package rather than hand these
Send it to
out.
Rolf and me.
Yes, that's what I'll do with that. Anything else? Yes, sir.
On the utilities, Bruce, I wonder if you could go through real quick. You've got Sam EMP, Verizon, Fairpoint, and then 2 items, alarm lines and Time Warner high-speed internet. That figure hasn't moved in 3 years. Can you?
Correct. It has not. Through Creative Control, one of the things we did is Kevin works with our high-speed internet for us, basically covers that. But what we did in-house is we took a bunch of our phone lines when we didn't have dispatch anymore. We were able to drop a couple of those lines and help control the costs. And we also, in last couple of years, renegotiated some of the costs or the packages, I guess, if you will, for our phone services. Our phone services, some of them are fast forwarded, if you will, over to Cumberland County, so that they answer some of our business lines, and others are answered in-house.
The alarm lines, these are residential and business lines coming into the fire department? Would that-
No, actually,
that would be?
good question. Those are actually for our fire alarms in-house. They go out to alarm monitoring companies.
Okay.
When we get the dispatch moved, we also get rid of those alarm lines that came into our building.
And the internet, why would that be a separate item and not under technology? Why would he carry a separate line item for that?
As we always have. I don't know why that's like that, but we
could
always
certainly,
have
if
carried
you
that.
prefer to everything.
I'm just curious why that would be broken up.
Past practice, history, there's no good reason. It could be certainly put into technology just as easily, and maybe that's a more appropriate place for it. No good reason, really. Maybe to show all the expenses of the department in one place, I guess.
That's fine,
Yeah.
I was just curious.
I
why
guess
it showed up there.
traditionally, we've carried most of our computer purchases and things like that in our
Separately.
systems, yeah, with maintenance from Kevin.
Last question, wasn't there at one point in time a plan to put a repeater over at Ganderbrook, or a tower in Ganderbrook?
Okay, what we do have at Ganderbrook is called a voter receiver site. In other words, this is a piece of equipment that receives radio signal and sends it on to our base station here at the town hall. A comparator compares all the signals and then sends out the strongest signal of all of them. The issue we have at Ganderbrook, and we're working with them to improve our tower height up there, is we're on a small antenna on the roof of their main office building. It does work, it's not that effective or efficient. So if we can put up a tower there, and we are working with them on a small tower, like 25, 30 footer, to get our antenna up in the air higher.
And that would be in addition to the one that's going up on Farm Road?
Correct. That will cover that area. The problem that we have with radio communications in this town is not only the granite that we have in town, but it's the hills. We're really shadowed in valleys, if you will. And radio doesn't like to travel curves. It's not like AM radio likes the low stuff, and the high frequency stuff likes to travel straight line, and it doesn't bend, so it doesn't fill in the valleys, if you will.
Thank you.
That's one of the sites that helps that. Yes, sir.
Chief, what service do you purchase from Verizon?
Verizon, that would be our cell phones and our wireless air cards for the computers in the trucks, so that our information that we're doing run sheets, uploads to the hospitals and things like that. That's how we communicate. It's basically a Wi-Fi for your computer.
With all the cell phone options these days, do you look around to see if anybody can do it cheaper, or is that what?
We have to use Verizon. We've experimented. We've had various people tell us there are other providers, but we've done a fair amount of experimenting with other providers, and no one's perfect, but Verizon is as close to, I won't call it perfect, but as close to serviceable. We have some dead spots with Verizon, but the others are far worse. There is no perfect provider for Raymond because of the hills and, the other terrain.
Yeah, same applies to these systems as does our radios, unfortunately.
I believe the state of Maine contracts with U.S. Cellular for everything, I think.
They may.
And,
I would argue.
I just wondered if there was a chance to, apparently they're getting the best buy there, who knows?
I would say I might not
There's
do what the
price
state of
and
Maine did.
there's price and there's service.
right.
Correct.
I mean, you can
Most
get a good
things.
price, but if you can't get the signal out, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good.
That's what I'll tell you. It might be cheaper, but if you couldn't get a signal, how good would that be? And I wouldn't model this on the state of Maine right now.
Okay.
Well, probably in the recent past.
What,
I mean, that's the
Yeah,
reason- that's
yeah,
the reason
absolutely.
US Peter?
One of the things, because of our radio issues, we use the ambulance cell phone as well, and they're in both ambulances, and they have become very key to us. In fact, it's become our main link to the hospital ERs direct, because we can talk directly with the doctor and hold that conversation, not have a radio conversation. So those phones work well for us in that application. And the coverage has been very good for us.
do you, whether you're making a fire call or an EMS call, do you typically use both cell and radio?
We can. That's very common, actually. Very common. We'll get dispatched over the radio system and respond en route, et cetera. But when we get to a patient or something, a lot of times information that's we don't want broadcast over the air, we'll deal direct with our dispatch center or with the emergency room directly over the phone. It allows us to have a phone conversation with the doctor right in the emergency room and things like that. So it works out very well. And yeah, it may sound redundant, but it's very much necessity. And there are areas we can't get out with our radios and vice versa. The other will work.
Lonnie?
Found that, with my experience, that US Cellular is more of a northern type company, and the cell service is much better. And Augusta, the cell service is perfect for US Cellular, and on the same token it is for Verizon. But the question that I have is, I understand that each department should maybe be responsible for for the expense of the cell phones, but why wouldn't we look at a package that would be all in one and be using a pool of minutes? I mean, that's definitely a cost savings, and you could put it all under a telephone for, from the town manager's phone to the chief's phone, and that would be pooled minutes, and it would,
Yep.
definitely, you'd find a savings there.
We can definitely look into that.
I know right now, the packages that we do have allow all our in-calling and stuff like that, and free calling, obviously, in that respect, so we utilize that a great deal.
Which is another reason why, in my eyes, you should stay with one company, because then you get mobile to mobile, and that's usually free with your plan, but.
Other questions on fire and rescue? Dennis, did you have something you wanted to?
I think I'll deal with it with CIP.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Animal control.
Don had to step out for a minute. He's not
He said
feeling
he
very
was-
well.
Yeah.
I think all you're seeing there is the increase in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
3% increase.
I'll say what we can do is have Nathan come up and we'll do Public Works while we're waiting for Don to come back. Seems he's got the other big piece of pie.
Public Works was up, hold on a minute, I get caught up. We're up by $20,000 this year. There's $10,000 in salaries, there's an adjustment in there for our foreman, and the 3% increase. $2,500 in vehicle maintenance, that's to reflect a high mileage fleet of equipment. Should probably have been a little bit more than that, but we tried to keep it down. Fuel's up 11,000, the plow contract's up 6,000, and a little over $800 for heat to District 2. We cut $11,000 out of the salt budget to reflect what we're using and price of salt right now. That's pretty much it.
Nate,
Yes.
Mike?
if we buy salt this year, do we buy a certain amount, and then if we don't use it, does it go to next year?
Yes, we don't stockpile salt in the building, we don't have enough room. We can put in about 2,000 yards of sand, salt sand mixture, and we buy salt by the 30-ton loads to carry us through each individual storm. We don't have the capacity to stockpile our salt. If we did, that would actually be pretty good. So I think we're going to start seeing salt going up.
So when you budget for salt, you're not buying a contract of so many tons?
No. We budget for 1,000 ton of salt a year. We use a little over 500 ton just to put our winter sand up if we use our full capacity of sand. Where there's no penalties for us to not buy or buy what we use for salt. We tried to go into the MDOT salt bid one year, and there were penalties in that. If you asked for 1,000 ton of salt, you had to either purchase it or you paid a penalty if you didn't purchase it. And there again, where we don't have the capacity to, or the facility to store it, we opted out.
Thank you.
Nate, the increase in diesel or fuel costs it's about 39% increase, and I recognize that everyone's expecting fuel prices to go up, but
That
it seems
was a-
like a heck of a lot.
Well, that was, Nancy and I come together on that, and that's to reflect what we're really using for fuel and what we're projecting it to go up to.
So and I'm working off budget to budget, so your actual versus budget for 2011 was off then? So it's not a 39% increase from actual to budget?
We cut the budget last year. This year's
Right,
budget,
yep.
we cut the number of gallons, and we're going to exceed it.
Okay. So it's
So-
not a fair comparison to say,
Right.
so your actual's actually higher than what the
Yes.
budget was?
Marshall?
If I remember right, this was a multi-year contract for fuel in some certain cases?
No.
Or was it just
year to
heating
year,
and-
year to year on a fuel? It's with, hometown, the fuel in Raymond's all bid through one contract. Nancy handles that for us.
We go for main power option.
And it's just 1 year at a time?
Charlie?
I guess the elephant in the room is going to be snow plowing contract. So we are in the last year.
We're in the last year of a 5-year contract, and that's up, I think it was $6,729 this year. That brings us to $4,100 a mile for plowing. And we're probably gonna go out, it'll be next summer we'll go out to bid on it. We'll take a look at it, see what we're gonna do with it.
So that'll be in the next fiscal year.
Correct.
We'll be dealing with that.
This will carry us through to May of 2013.
This is a very difficult one, and there's no really good answer. Traditionally, Raymond has used a contract because it was the cheapest thing to do, but basically all you get, of course, is, plowing, and of course in the old days you got sand included, now we provide sand, but, so you got plowing and sanding as needed, and the big crew would come, do that work, and then leave. But unlike other towns that have a larger public works crew, you don't have the manpower, the equipment to do things the rest of the year. So, having made that decision many decades ago to be a contract town, which is somewhat unusual for a town our size now, not completely unusual. There are towns, it depends on which way you go. If you go to the east, it doesn't happen. If you go to the west, it's still sort of the predominant way they do it. But we're sort of a hybrid because we have a small crew year-round, and then we have the largest part of the work done by a contractor. Arguably, I guess, if you look at it on a per mile basis, it's exponentially expensive, but we could only do it better, cheaper if we had crew and equipment. We don't. So, and there's only one contractor, so it's a tough nut, a tough situation to be in. The only thing I would recommend would be, over time, maybe you look at gradually, if you thought you had a need in other areas in the town, you gradually look at increasing the crew and your local equipment, or you accept the reality that you're going to pay whatever the market will bear for contracting. And I'm not saying they've used us badly, they've done a great job for us, but they're in business to make money, and when it doesn't snow, they make money.
So what would that do in a town if we had the equipment and we would have just part-time people on plowing?
Well, that's one way towns have done it, but most towns have, I say most towns, well, and now it's a long time ago, but the little town of 3,000 that I came from had around 14, 15 guys on Public Works. We were able to address needs instantly. People really loved their Public Works department because I could solve problems immediately, and I can't do that so much here because there's just not the manpower to do it. We get way more requests for things than we can fulfill. We try to make the best of what we have for resources, both equipment and manpower, but we don't have the resources to do what some towns do.
Right, but still, what is the answer to the question?
The answer to the question
Right,
is
but-
you'd probably, to handle a town this size, you need, I'm going to guess somewhere, order of magnitude 12, 14, 15-man crew.
And what would those men do in the winter when we did, like a winter like this?
Well, they cut brush, they work on sign issues. We have lots of complaints about site issues. They do things like that. They do interior projects. They do preventive maintenance on vehicles. Work on equipment, not only for Public Works, but you might have them go in and do work on fire trucks, things like that. Very rarely, you have them come in and do interior projects on town buildings sometimes if you need something done. And we do that even with our little crew. We do that
Right, we do it now, so you
Right.
think that there would be enough
Right, and
work
I'm not advocating, I'm not saying do that, I'm just telling you what the options are. That's not cheaper, that's gonna be more expensive. More service for more money. But
That
it's
would
cheap.
be more expensive to
Oh,
have
yeah.
our own, okay, that's
It's more,
right.
you're gonna have an increase in the contract, but all you're gonna get is plowing services. Unless another contractor emerges. You know, you don't have a competitive environment.
Well, I think your
But I mean, your,
Your
you know, your labor cost is one side of the is one leg, but I mean, you're looking at, you know, what's your equipment investment?
Oh, no,
to get- I mean,
yeah,
you-
and we made the decision, I think the die is cast. We're probably a contract town, the best we can do would be if you wanted to, we could gradually, as we have done in the past, slowly take on more responsibility, you know, add, if you wanted to, but if you don't, you're gonna have to bid it and see what you get.
Right, I think we understand that.
Yeah, so there's
I
no
mean,
good
that's what-
solution.
right.
There's no good solution on this one.
Right, well, we know that, I think that that's the way it is, but I don't know what the other alternative would be in terms of
Either have your own
investing.
crew or you pay what the market will bear.
Right,
Or they'll pay what they'll do it for.
right. And they do a good job, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, they're.
Yeah, I think so, my God,
We get
so-
4 trucks and a foreman, when it snows.
yeah.
I've never had any issues with it.
No, I think they do a great job.
Charlie?
How do we compare the cost per mile for the 40 miles we do?
They do, just over 40 miles, that comes up to $4,100 a mile this year. Our last year internal cost was, 29 and change, the number right off the top of my head, it was just shy of $3,000 a mile. I'm working off from exact cost, and to get the equipment cost down, I zero the value of the equipment to zero over 10 years, and then divide it out over the mileage. It's pretty simple. When you get into adding more staff is where you're gonna get into expense.
So compared to Wyndham or Casco, because
Well,
Casco's subcontracts.
Casco's
all
subcontract,
contract, they don't
Naples
have
is
anybody
subcontract.
at all.
Wyndham, last year, their per mile cost was just shy of 35, I think sticks in the back of my mind. And he's got a nine-man crew, I believe it is, Wyndham. Plus, grounds maintenance people and the whole.
He must have part-timers as well.
No, they had 2 part-timers in Wyndham. I think Ray does 3 part-timers.
They must not have much mileage then.
100 and something, I don't remember the numbers right off the top of my head.
Well, I'd say they have a pretty efficient crew. That's a small crew for a town that size.
But that reflects on the condition of your roads too. We've got right now more equipment per mile than anybody in our neighboring towns. So our average plow route's an hour and 15 minutes, and most towns around us around 3 hours. And that makes a big difference when you're climbing up over Mountain Road and Valley Road and all that stuff. You don't want to be more than an hour sitting around.
I'd say we hope for competition maybe, that'd be the thing, and see what happens, or maybe if there's no competition, you try to work out a deal and extend the contract. Hopefully they'll still want to stay in the business. I think that's what you're looking at. The capital cost and personnel costs, cost prohibitive to get in the business now. Kind of like merging schools, it's a problem like that, you know. We don't have the infrastructure, you know. We don't own the trucks.
Other questions on Public Works? Let's go back to animal control. We
Right.
jumped over that one.
You want to go back to that? Okay, so animal control has a small increase due to an increase in hours and a proposed wage increase. We also have a small decrease, the Animal Refuge League contract has a small decrease with the overall result account-wide of a $901 increase. So, we now have three animal control officers, a principal animal control officer, Sue Fielder, and then 2 assistant ACOs, Bobby Silcott, who works in Naples and Sebago and Casco, and probably a few other towns, and Harrison. And then we have now Linda Alexander, who is the wife of Don Alexander. Don's no longer doing animal control, but Sue's our principal person, and then 2 backups.
Questions on animal control? Streetlights?
It's pretty consistent year to year. I guess we got an increase of $630 just based on current electric use. And one thing we don't budget for, maybe it's in a different line. I guess it's in the 302 line. Those lights are separate, right?
in the TIF.
They're in the TIF, okay, so I was gonna say we don't budget for streetlights, but that's just in the TIF light zone, so this is the utility, the cost of the utility for our regular streetlights, not our executive streetlights. Those are separate.
Do we do electricity main here in this town?
Right. Glacial.
I'm sorry?
Electricity main.
Do we do that here?
Glacial Energy.
Use Glacial.
We shop them all, I'm not sure who we're with now, but Nancy.
But through electricity main that they shop for you? I mean, they've been advertising heavily.
A year or two ago, we tried a different supplier than the standard offer. And we kept track of how much it was costing us, and it actually was costing us more than the standard offer over the year. So we just went back to CME.
And that was Glacial Energy?
That was.
Okay, I get confused there for a minute. He was right, Glacial Energy.
Anything else on streetlights? Any solid waste?
Total decrease of $1,224. We got an increase of the contract for curbside trash and recycling, and the MWAC bond payment is also decreasing by $8,294. We locked in Pine Tree. I think we might be in the third year of a 5-year deal with them, but we were able to get single stream or zero sort recycling, however you say it, and maintain pretty nearly our current service levels with the exception of some substandard roads and contain our costs on that 5-year deal. So that's what we did. So if you follow the Northeast region, 3%, we were on the money on that one. I don't know. By luck.
That includes labor and vehicles and
Yep, everything.
the whole operational increase, which I think really,
everything.
To the benefit of this town, it was, especially now if you look at diesel price increases.
Some towns made, and we could have done this very easily, they opted to take a chance and do a fuel surcharge.
Yeah.
That would have been a bad move.
Yeah, I think we hit it on that one.
Lucky.
Are they still happy with us, or?
Oh, they're happy with us, and we're happy with them. I recently met with Stu Axelrod and the division manager, whose name escapes me at this moment, but Stu Axelrod is...
Dave McNally.
No, it wasn't Dave McNally, they have a new man. What's his name? Anyway, so they've just hired a new person, one step above Dave McNally. Dave McNally is their man on the ground. He's their Nathan. He's the guy that Nathan and Louise deal with. He's very... Nathan. Okay, Nathan. Okay, another Nathan. So our contract is managed by a Nathan, another Nathan in Brunswick, but the guy we deal with is Dave McNally. Dave McNally is a good guy to work with. We found him to be very helpful. What'd you say? We solve most problems. We don't get a lot now. With Pine Tree, you have a almost complaint-free contract. With some of the others we've had, you don't get that. BBI, you don't get that.
Brian?
Don, quick question. Assuming single sort has resulted in us recycling more material, how has that affected our tipping fee? I'm not seeing a drop in tipping fee, which I would assume would decline because you're putting less into the garbage stream.
That's a good question. We could ask Joe Kazar to do some analysis on that and tell us the answer, but I suspect one factor is increased population over time too. I don't know the answer, but it does make sense that we would be, and we are recycling more, that's for sure.
Total tonnage is up on both recycling and trash.
But our population...
Oh, I'll tell you a factor. Here's a factor.
Population's pretty strong.
Ready? You no longer have bulky waste. Bulky waste, a convenient, easy to deal with bulky waste situation.
Right.
So some people, not me, but some people would break down things and put them in their trash bags, I bet. That would normally, or would previously may have gone to bulky waste.
Still doesn't seem like, because I mean, single sort, I saw some of the numbers from Phil Hammett and the like. I mean, it's a pretty dramatic increase. It seems like the tipping number of tons, unless there's an increase in the cost of the tipping.
No, that's
It should have gone down. I mean,
It's a great question. We can pose the question to Joe Kazar and to Stu Axelrod. They're the trash experts. we'll do that
Okay, thanks.
and get an answer if they have one.
Other questions on solid waste?
Just one note I'd like to make on the EcoMaine demo project. If we can bite the bullet for 2 more years, that'll be $20,000 to the good for our budget in the future. And on that point, in talking to Mid-Maine Waste Action, they would be interested in some kind of dialogue just to be able to see what the status of our shares of that defunct or ill-advised project.
Do they want to buy it?
Well, I think they want to understand the full range of all the communities that bought into it, and since we're a member community of at least MWAC, they would in the future, it's not ripe yet, it would be next year probably, but then to see what is the disposition, what are the rights that the town of Raymond has to that piece of land in Warren, since we were a participant in the project.
Yeah, I know you attend the board meetings. I'm going to get in touch with Joe Kazar anyway, so we could, if you put it in the minutes, we could get that information if he wants it, sure.
Yeah, and it may need some legal, and it may not necessarily have to be this year, but as we get closer to this being closed out, we've spent this money, they own the land in Gorham, so I guess the question would be what rights, if any. I suspect we have none, but
So we could develop our section of the land, maybe?
possibly, or
I don't see that happening, but
Yeah.
you never know.
or maybe some kind of consortium with the other communities, find out who the other communities who also took part in the demonstration project. And
Yeah, and if some smart lawyer in the inception didn't block us out on that, then it would be an interesting question to pose. And then the other communities may well, if there was no limiting language,
Right.
then they may buy it
Right,
to get us off their back. Maybe.
just a thought.
We might want to think about squatters' rights, you know, if you kind of
Yeah.
just
You might find some
establish
squatters
our
already
beachhead
there.
now, you know?
What we have is a piece of land, though, that we exponentially overpaid for as a group of towns, that we have no use for now or in the foreseeable future, that's not worth what we paid for it. That's what we have.
And I think we ought
In
to
other words,
earmark
went
the
down as
twenty,
a good deal.
we should earmark the $20,000 for the reader board. There we go, 2 years.
That's a long time.
I know. All right, unless you find another way before that.
Yeah, we'll find out.
In 2014, you're retiring a lot of debt service.
Yeah, at least another 103,000 will come off of the Public Works construction bond, and then others follow in 2015. So, I mean, obviously, as a town, we're going to be bonding and using that money. It might be in the snow plowing contract will eat up a considerable portion, but we are getting to the end of several of these 10-year bonds.
That one was, I think, quite a bit longer, actually, because many of the selectmen who entered into that deal, as I recall, are no longer selectmen, obviously, and some no longer with us, I think.
No longer left, yeah.
So that's an old one.
Well, I think, yeah. Cliff signed that one, so.
Yeah, it's a real old one. And I remember it came up when I first came here, and I didn't understand it, but we talked to their accountant. Rocco Marzilli was their accountant, and he told us that it was our obligation, we couldn't get out of it. If we tried to get out of it, he'd come and see us about it.
Okay, moving right along.
He said we were gonna pay that no matter what. We weren't getting out of it.
Appropriately, moving on to cemeteries. Cemetery account.
All right, you know, a little lightheaded tonight, I think. An increase of 8365 is proposed. You're setting markers in the daily annex of the North Raymond Cemetery, as well as an increase of $100 for veterans' grave markers. So the question I would have myself, we put it in as an initiated request. I guess you have to gauge, how critical is this, Nathan, Louise? How critical is this that this happens this year?
Louise on this one. She said,
I don't know. I mean, it's an initiated request. I put it in because you said to put it in. In another year, I probably wouldn't have. If it was a different year, I probably would have said, maybe not.
A number of years ago, a family in North Raymond gave a piece of land to the town of Raymond to have an annex built onto the North Raymond Cemetery. Nothing was done for a number of years, and finally, about 2 years ago, I started making comment to the cemetery committee as to why nothing had been done. And basically, they really didn't know how to approach the board and the budget committee to go forward with it. At that point, it was a piece of land that needed some more fill, which Nathan's taken care of, to make it level and to start to prepare it to be a cemetery. This last year, we had it surveyed, and everything is ready to go, with the exception of plot markers, so that we see on the face of the earth where each of the plots starts and stops. In many of our cemeteries, being extremely old, we really don't know on the face of the earth what's underneath the earth. And so it becomes a problem, especially when you're selling lots. People want to know what they're purchasing. And I really shouldn't say purchasing, because the town will remain owners of the property. Essentially what the people are doing is paying money for the use of the property and perpetual care. My thought on this, and the cemeteries committee went along with it, was that we really, in this brand new piece of cemetery, should know exactly what we're dealing with, what we're selling, and where we are burying people. So we went ahead and got a price on what it would cost to put the 4 corners in each one of the lots. And there are over 100 of them. And so going in before the first burial is done, we'll know exactly where they are. We can keep a record of where they are, and we'll know who owns what. I think it's imperative that we do this. I kind of have seen problems in our other cemeteries, mostly because of the age of them. And it's not a pretty prospect to have even one more cemetery plot that there is no knowledge about. So I really think this is a good expense to put in our budget and to take care of. So at least we'll have one piece of cemetery that we can be sure of, or as sure as we could be.
How many lots do we sell a year?
Actually, it's been pretty good this last year or so. Probably.
Business is up, so.
Yeah, probably not more than half a dozen a year. But the thing is, once somebody's put their money down, their loved ones are going to go in the ground there, and you don't want to mess with them. Once they're there, you don't want to be having to ask somebody to move somebody. We've had an issue here this year that's happened, and Dennis has been very active working with that in the Hasty Cemetery. And it would be much nicer to go forward knowing what you got rather than having to fix it after the fact.
It's a real problem in ancient cemeteries, and I can tell you from my earliest intern days, you can dig in places you don't want to dig sometimes. I'll leave it at that.
Charlie?
If you don't know the locations of the lots.
Perpetual care is 1,500? Is that where our number is right now?
You mean to purchase a plot?
Yes.
We changed the amounts, and it's $300 for residents per plot. That's a single burial plot, and $500 for non-residents. Because we do have a number of people that don't live here in Raymond that want to be buried here.
So potentially 100 lots? at
It's over
North
there, it's like
Raymond.
140, I think,
So it's $50,000 to $60,000
ultimately.
ultimately,
Hopefully it'll be a long time before we see.
before we get there. How full is that cemetery, North Raymond? Is that maxed out, or?
Yes and no. There are still lots available, but I hate to say they're undesirable lots, but, you know, they're, a lot of families like to buy a clump together, and they're pretty sparsely allotted throughout the cemetery. So it's not that we can't sell them, and of course we will, but I think having this new piece of cemetery may encourage families to get together and buy a clump of lots together so that the families can remain together. The village cemetery has a few left, although mostly in the newest section, which is section E up at the back of the cemetery. But again, we're getting fewer of those all the time. Mountain Road is totally filled. Hasty Cemetery is totally sold. I won't say filled, but sold. Riverside probably has more lots per acre than, than the others. But even in Riverside, we're going to have to start expanding. I think Mountain Hill, Raymond Hill Cemetery is almost on the critical for having available lots. That's a very popular cemetery, if you want to put it that way. So we do have land up there, but we'll have to develop more of it in order to have it ready for burials, and that'll be another expense, but I don't see that imminently, but within the next 5 years probably.
Joe?
With as few lots as we're selling, do we need to do this all at once? I mean, can we do this incrementally?
You probably could, but I don't think you'd get the best price doing it that way. I mean, I haven't asked the question, I could.
Matter of cash flow.
I mean, once they're there, set up surveying, you know, and getting the pins in the right place and all that, I imagine it would be less cost effective to do it in pieces.
Did we just ask for a solicited bid from the locals? I'm assuming this is a
The original
licensed surveyor.
survey was done by Sebago Technics, and I had them come in and give me a price on putting markers in because they've already done it.
But would this be considered something that is out of the ordinary for any surveyor to be able to do it?
I don't think it would be difficult. We can explore alternate pricing to do it a little at a time. I mean, I'm not too proud to say, maybe contact a few assessors, surveyors and say, would you be willing to do it as a donation for a letter for your taxes? Who knows? I could try it.
Just my experience, and I know we've had some
I don't
good
think it's that tough.
experience with Sebago Technics, but they tend to be a fairly
Yeah, I think this
high-end engineering.
Yeah, they're a top-notch firm, and they, well, not Wood and Curran or, you know, Kimball Chase cost, but they're up there, and so I think this is laying out like a simple grid work. You might be able to get somebody who might just do this, possibly. I don't know. It's time, though. Time is money.
Marshall, do you have another question?
Yes, Louise, are these full-size lots, or are some of these plots for cremated remains, which would be a smaller?
The way we have it planned is that they're full-size lots, and there are 4 plots per lot.
Right.
And they would be putting the pins in the lots, so you'd be a block of 4 that they'd be putting the pins around.
Peter?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate for Louise at this point, but this is at least 3 places where mowing is listed in the budget. Town office, roadside mowing, and cemetery. Is this all one contract?
It's going up to bid, yeah.
It is. Oh, but it's all part of the same bid.
Yeah. It'll be broken out by work, but it's one bid.
Thank you.
I think we'll have interested bidders, we always do.
Marshall? Yep.
The perpetual care income line, that's $4,000 a year, and it's been that way for a while. Is that from money that's been used to purchase lots, and that's investment income, or is that, what is that? I'm not clear on that.
That's exactly what that is.
Okay.
It's in the trust funds. And
Okay.
that portion is taken out of the trust funds each year
To-
for perpetual care.
And that is used hypothetically to pay some of these expenses?
Yeah, they you know, we most of the committee are all volunteers, will clean the stones and that sort of thing, but we have to hire somebody to repair. And periodically.
Well, I understand there's expenses, I was just curious how that all worked. Thanks. Thank you.
Louise, thank you for an incredible report. I'm amazed at your knowledge of, right off the top of your head, what was in all those cemeteries. And
I live
that
with
was,
it.
That's awesome. It really is incredible. Thank you. God.
Other questions on cemeteries? Parks and Recreation?
No changes.
Questions on Charlie? And Steve?
I understand Tappletop's not on here, I understand why, but how about the beach down at Crescent Beach? I mean, if there's erosion, or Nathan's gotta go down there, I mean, there's work that it goes on down there.
We suck it up in Public Works, what we do there.
That's part of our spring cleanup. Mowing and beach cleanup, that's what we're doing.
And no matter what we do on that, we clean it up, and then the stuff blows in, and then somebody says, when are you gonna clean the beach up? And then you clean it up, and then people say, when are you gonna clean the beach up? Every year. They say, we already cleaned it. No, you didn't. It's covered in whatever.
Charlie?
Again, just going after the nickels and dimes, but Agawam Mowing for Soccer, I remember when we set up that program, and I'm just wondering if there's a possibility, A, to go to Agawam and see if we can't get some other kind of decrease or in-kind contribution. I believe, and I might be mistaken, that they're a nonprofit organization, so is there a possibility, or with the existing fields that we're working with now, and I do believe most people, I don't know if you agree or not, but the fields maintenance by the RSU has been fantastic. They've been great, so is that a possibility that our own existing fields are useful? So approach Agawam, see if we can reduce that line. Just make sure Raymond Rec is, we're exhausting all of the use of our own town-owned facilities. And 3, and this is something I brought forward probably about 6 months ago, there are 2 funds that we have. One is for recreation that's never been tapped. It's only $400 or $500, and then there's one for education. And when we were discussing the trust funds that we have out there, those are 2 funds that exist that haven't been utilized. I know they don't have a lot of principal in there, but is there a possibility, failing any attempt to Agawam, that we could have Raymond Rec apply to the town to get at one of those recreation funds to reduce the cost of that $2,000 line item for the mowing? So I know it's a lot for a $2,000 line, but it really didn't exist before, and I don't think we've visited it in quite a few years, so it might be a good time to do that.
It's probably, if you had to build it, it's all of a $500,000 facility, and it's used heavily. I don't think there are any alternatives that we know of, because it's the base for the soccer. We originally were trying to mow it with volunteers. It was unsatisfactory to the Agawam folks. I put this in the category of a really good public-private partnership. We now have it on a contract. It gets mowed to their satisfaction. We have the insurance issues worked out, what Raymond Rec does, and so we use it, and we get it in exchange for the maintenance on it. So that's a pretty good deal. The only thing we have tried, like I said, was volunteers, and that failed, so I would hesitate to do that again.
And then Plan B, if we could just look at that recreation fund that has been unused, and I don't think we've ever drawn off it, so.
Are you talking about the Luka Gulick?
Is it Gulick? Yeah.
We actually have someone coming to the meeting next week asking for money.
Oh, good. That's a good thing.
Also, it doesn't provide a lot of interest.
But you could draw on that if you wanted to reduce that. He's right about that. And I just would be cautious about messing with this arrangement, because I think they're being pretty generous to us now. It's just it'd be whether you could mow it to their satisfaction with volunteers. It's really, they want it mowed right and regularly, and so do the soccer people. And so it's a lot to it. It's a big field, or fields.
Other questions on Parks and Recreation? Library.
I'm a stand-in for Carol Meter tonight. I've been a member of the library board for the past year and have been a patron for the past 15 years. And we're really moving into some significant changes at the library coming up in this next fiscal year. I think the biggest change is that we are losing our library director. Barbara Thorpe will be retiring, so we will be hiring a new director. Qualifications have changed for that position since Barbara was hired, and we were, prior to the year 2000, we were exempt from hiring someone that had a degree. Where we do not have to hire someone with a master's in library science, but we do have to have a degreed person, and we certainly want to be able to get the best candidate for that position. The other change in our staffing is that we've seen a need to consolidate 2 part-time positions. One was the story time, toddler time person. We haven't been able to have a stable person for the past 4 years in that position, and it's really taken a toll on the kind of programming and services that we can offer to our families and preschool population. And And we've coordinated that with our library assistant so that we can offer more comprehensive services. We are moving into automation. We're counting down, I don't know how many tens of thousands of books that we have gotten into the system, but we anticipate there will be some increased technology expenses coming with automation. And the third piece is that we are looking for opportunity for additional storage and additional space for Raymond Village Library. We have a possible opportunity with a building in town, and we'll be looking at expenses related to moving that building if that's going to be working for us. In the past 3 years, we've requested $30,900 from the town. We'd like to increase that request to $35,000 this year. 45% of our budget was supported by the town last year. The additional 55% is raised through our annual appeal and various fundraisers.
Questions?
Joe? How did you arrive at the 35,000? It's a 13% increase.
Yeah, it's a $4,100.
It just round numbers? Is
Well, I think we're looking at what we felt we could come to the town in terms of being reasonable with what our expenses are. This past year, we're operating at about a $4,700 deficit. In terms of looking at salary increases, benefit increases. We have a difficult time with having one person on our staff and being able to provide insurance benefits for that person.
What salary increase are you paying?
I don't have to.
What percentage?
We don't know that yet because we're going to be negotiating with a new person.
And what percentage of your budget is this 35,000?
It's 48% of our budget.
48?
Yeah.
Charlie?
First of all, the library, the community garden project was a super addition to the whole overall, I think, if you want to call it the marketing of the library, that's helped considerably. And obviously, the town has explored over the past several years a lot of potential consortium building expansions or new buildings. So I think the community has made it very clear, and I think even the select board has put it down as one of its primary objectives to make sure we can give as much support as we possibly can to the library. With that said, I think my concern is the 13% increase, the $4,100, and not for the larger number, not for the percentage. It's what I've had to vote on this board over the past few years as to what agencies aren't getting that money. Tri-County Mental Health, Community Health Services. We've zeroed out almost every one of those we have zeroed them all out. I think, as a matter of fact, for up until a year ago, we weren't even participating with GP Cog. And now I've brought them back on to a total of about $4,700. So in relative comparison to that, I would really, based on the socioeconomic data that drives all the census and the information that's collected by our federal government, Raymond is a fairly well-off community. The per cap family income in the town of Raymond is fairly significant. It's third or fourth in the state of Maine. And so I would like to, as we deliberate more on the $4,100, try to make an appeal, whether it's from this venue or from your venue, to say to some of the other potential patrons out there, maybe it's the 1%, maybe it's the 10%, but I think looking at your budget, we should be doing a lot better for a town of this size, of the private individuals coming forward and supporting the library. And that's not to say at this point that I'm for or against the increase. I'm not. I'm just, in relative terms of where we are as a town and a state, knowing the pressures, and when we say there's a 3% increase for salaried employees because fuel has gone up, well, that same fuel cost has hit the taxpayer. It's hit every segment of our socioeconomic base in this town. Poor, middle class, wealthy alike. So in order for me to feel more comfortable with it, I have to bring that out and say, again, in terms of community health services, great agency, definitely had provided for in-need individuals in this town, Tri-County Mental Health, and we've zeroed them out. So I guess in that backdrop, in that environment, just to, again, make as big of a pitch to those. I mean, we have $19,000 in a community help fund, and I think we could probably, if I read that, your budget right, you probably have about 21,000 that's coming in from individual donations.
Yeah, we budgeted for 22,000.
22,000. So I'd like to put the challenge out there that that could be 42,000.
Well, we'd love to certainly see that, Charlie. In terms of looking at what those donations are, though, I think we're being hit by some of the same economic pieces that other people have. We're seeing fewer donations come in for lesser amounts than possibly we've seen. In the past, we rely heavily on fundraising, and we've been very lucky that Barbara Thorpe has been able to put the energy into, I mean, we make significant monies off from a book sale. I mean, $10,000 for the year off from that book sale. But that's, really has been a tremendous effort on Barbara's part to be able to see that going. And we are looking that if we're able to pull off this building project, to be able to do that outside of this budget through targeted fundraising and an appeal in order to be able to do that. But we want to continue offering the kind of service. Moving into automation is bringing us into a whole nother piece. And we are seeing more people coming into the library because of the technology part. I mean, it was amazing with when power was out in town and how many people were in the parking lot. We're in our meetings at night and people are parked outside because they're using internet. So we're really looking for ways to move the library, forward into the 21st century, and appreciating the kind of work that Barbara has done to make this a community resource and a valuable resource. But we appreciate any support that the town is going to be giving us and value the funding that we've been able to get. But we're in a unique position that we're not fully funded by the community as some other community libraries are. We do rely on fundraising, and at some point, we're dipping more into our savings to be able to offer the kind of service that we need to offer.
I've been the select board representative to the library, I think, for a year, maybe two, I don't know.
Melds together.
Yeah, so I sit with Lee once a week. We spend 4 hours entering books into our computer system so that our citizens will be able to go by computer and see if the library has a book. You'll be able to look every title up from our library on the computer. You'll be able to reserve from the computer. This reality will probably happen in this year. The technology committee has been fabulous at supporting the library. The discussion at the board level, and I'll share this, I don't think the board members will mind, it was not unanimous to ask for this money. I'll be very frank with you, I encouraged it. The library has been flat funded for 3 or 4 years. When you look at the history, prior to that, it was a 3 or 4 year history, again, of flat funding going back. And this is our library. This is the Raymond Town Library. I sit there entering books, and when I look at the years we acquired these books, it's part of what we enter into this database. Our director has given us a modern collection. Most of the books we enter that are in the fiction or even the nonfiction, if it's not a pure research title, is less than 10 years old. That collection now has to be culled in order to add books to it. So if we buy 10 books, we almost have to cull 10 books because we're running out of space. And the board has talked, as Norma mentioned, that if we do get fortunate enough to have this building given to us and we can move it on site, it will be a storage building, which will mean that we can keep our collection and rotate our collection rather than having to give our collection away. So I encouraged this increase, which yes is 13%, but I did it because of how much work I've seen down there that has been done by the volunteers inside. And we are about to, I'll say, flower to be able to offer what we can offer. And I'll also put out a plug for all you folks now who read on tablets or who listen to books. Those are also available at our library. You can get titles for your tablet. You can get titles to listen to Audible. It's not just the paper book anymore. So our library is modernizing, is there. And I see this 13% when you really push it over 4 years is almost nothing. And they waded through hopefully what was the worst of our economic terms. I also don't argue with Charlie at all. We've talked about how are we going to get out there and get more local appeal to bring folks in. But I would suggest that this is an asset that crosses all of our citizens and is just there waiting for the taking, and this is a small investment in our citizens.
Sam, did you have a question?
I did, but he answered it. I was going to ask a question about the new building, and
I just wanted to share, Lee was able to get some information on libraries who serve a population of between 2,500 and 5,000, and we're lucky that we're under that $5,000 population limit, because then it puts us into some other expenditures. But if we're looking at average library size of 3,500, we're 4,400 in terms of our population. But looking at what per capita total operating expenses are, state average for our size is $21.13, and we're operating at $14.48. So I think we've been pretty efficient to deliver the kind of program that has been available for our patrons. And some of the new things that we're doing, such as this being part of the state system through Overdrive, that we do need to pay yearly fees to access that. And because we have more people that are using it, our fees are increasing, which is great. It's another way for people to be able to, another resource for people to access. And I know I use it frequently, as a lot of other people do. But we certainly appreciate your support.
thank you, Norma.
Other questions?
Norma, how many hours a week is the library open?
It's open 27 hours a week, so it's open on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday from 10 to 7.
And that number you threw out, $14 and $21, does that compare with hours open also, or is that just a dollar for dollar?
Many of these libraries that are on this list are open fewer hours than ours are open.
Okay. Thank you.
CIP.
Provider agencies?
There's nothing there.
Huh?
Right.
There's nothing there.
There is nothing on it.
Okay. CIP, an overall decrease in the CIP budget of $14,262 due to decreases in the bond payments for road construction, public safety, building, and fire department equipment debt. So we're heading in the right direction with our bonds, have been.
Questions? Yep, Dennis?
One of the things we've been working on is regionalization, and I just want to give you a quick overview. We're not asking for money this year, but what we are going to be doing is providing you with a letter and an overview of our equipment, and also to give you an update on what we've done with District 2's trucks, which is Engine 2 and Tank 2. One's 23 years old and one's 26 years old. We asked you to allow us to rehab them because trying to keep flat budgets. So we rehabbed one 2 years ago, or 2.5, 3 years ago, and then the engine just recently. And when I talk about rehabbing, we actually had It looked at from engine to transmission to the frame, undercoating what we could, replacing the plastic tank when the metal tank went out in tank 2. Well, through the regional efforts, we're really hoping that we can buy a common tank truck when this 26-year-old truck is ready. But when we rehabbed it, we also stated that we're hoping to get 5 to 8 years out of these trucks. Normal use of an apparatus, as far as the field goes, a standard field would be 20 years to 25 years. Our average age with the 4 major trucks, which is engine 1, tank 1, engine 2, tank 2, is 15 years. So one of the reasons we were able to postpone it is because we were able to rebuild those. But as I told Don, I'm not feeling all warm and fuzzy with this regionalization, and there's 2 reasons. They recommended eliminating the tank truck, which meant that they'd save money by 3 towns and eliminating different trucks in each town. But the ISO report, which is how we pay our insurance, we got lowered 8 years ago, I think, when we did the reevaluation, because we had the tank trucks and stuff. So we made, and Don made the argument for us, and as did the chiefs, that these people we hired to do regionalization weren't really looking at the total picture of insurances and stuff. So, but talking to Chief Tupper and Kathy, the 3 of us have talked over, extensively over this. Obviously, when you hear about nickels and dimes, you hear about people asking every question from the library. We're not going to come in and ask for an increase this year. But each year you put it off, knowing the truck's a year older. We don't want to get into bonding either. We really believe that 10 years ago or 12 years ago, when we started setting money aside, that we were making interest on the money as opposed to paying interest. But we're also not foolish. We know that one of the equipment bonds comes up in 2 years. So even if we put it off for 2 years and we find out regionalization doesn't work, we'd then be asking for that money from that bond to be rolled over into CIP because we're going to be buying an engine company. So we're really trying to spread this out, but educate you as we go. Where I see the savings will be if Casco and Naples agreed to, like, air packs, $6,000 a pack. And you have to have 2, actually 4 on trucks, and we're even talking about putting them on an ambulance so we'll become more efficient. But you have to have so many of them. We got the grant, but, there's a life on these packs of 15 years. But if the 3 towns agreed that we put 1 pack truck with 10 air packs in it, in Casco, for example, if they had people that would drive it. Right now, the rescue members don't do fire, but they could drive a truck. We just have to convince them and tell them that in 10 years or 12 years, and I believe Casco got an air pack grant too, didn't they?
No.
Was it Naples?
Naples did, I believe, yes. Casco bought used ones.
So, and we had bought some used ones to get us through to the point where we got the grant. If we can get these towns to work with us on this sort of thing, like rolling a pack truck at a structure fire, instead of everyone having 12 or 14 packs to a town, or 18, you'd have a minimum amount on the trucks. Then when we get ready to replace them in 15 years, we won't be replacing 18 packs, we'll be getting them together. So our goal is to really use this year's process to educate you on what we have for problems. We haven't been shy about the economical way we built the public safety building. The roof had a lot of damage before we got the insulation and got that under control. But we plan on giving you a plan that'll go out over the next 10 years. We're not asking for money this year, but we think most of you will be back next year. So what we'd really like to do is say, if regionalization isn't happening by next year, this is what we need to do. If we still have a bad economy, it's not to say we can't put it off until 2014 or 15 when that 59,000 frees up. Yeah. If we put it off till then, we won't be asking for more money. We'll just be asking to utilize that money to buy the next engine company. But it's going to take an educational process. We're even willing to do a CD so that people don't have to listen to myself or Chief Tupper or Kathy. And we could go on all night about our needs, but if we do something simple, give you a plan, tell you here's an option we have, we're working with you again this year, and obviously with the citizens, but at some stage it bites you in the butt. So rather than go on and on tonight, I just want to give you 2 quick figures to give you an idea. When I got here, turnout gear was $600. This is just pants and coat. $1,600 now. Scott Air Pack was $1,200. $1,200? 16, I think it was. Right around $1,600. The air pack's now $5,600. I mean, this is just in a 10-year period. And let me tell you why we put some money in Engine 2. No computer chips. Engine 2's an old truck that just is, Nathan can work on it, anyone can work on it. We don't have to hook up a laptop. With the rescues, we start with a laptop to figure out what's wrong with them. So every time they put a computer chip in a radio or in that Scott Air Pack or in the, the equipment we have, it costs us that much more money. So again, I don't want to spend all night. I just want to let you know that you'll be getting a letter, a comprehensive printout of what we have for gear, for expensive gear, trucks or apparatus, whatever you want to, what we're hoping to do, and then let you know that next year you're going to have a really comprehensive understanding of where regionalization is or isn't, and you'll also have a plan of where I think we can go maybe 2 years, but then that 59,000 we'll be asking to roll it in, because we probably won't get more than 6 years. But if I have my way and I'm still here kicking around doing the volunteer work, I enjoy this. I believe this. I believe in what we're doing to the point where I'm going to give all my time because they need administrative assistance and paperwork. But you have to believe these trucks are important for insurances. They're not toys. They're very expensive. Again, an example. Casco paid $450,000 for an engine. We're talking demos. We're talking about buying even something that's got a few years on it. I would love to have less computerization and not, but that's where we're headed. We'll give you a little bit better details somewhere down the road, but we also get the message that we're looking to commit as close as we can. So thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Questions on the CIP? Joe?
Well, I don't know if this is about the CIP, but we're pretty much down to the gross budget line. And I guess I need an explanation. The gross budget increase is $54,000. Is that correct? Why are we saying we need $80-something thousand to flat fund ourselves?
Because of the reduction in
Revenues.
Okay. Okay. One idea that Charlie has brought up for a couple of years now, and I think it's time that we address it, and I'm starting to agree with Charlie again.
We've been agreeing with Charlie pretty.
It should happen.
This assessing update reserve, we have $70,000 in it. We are not going to do a reval probably for at least another 10 years. This money has been sitting in there for at least 6 years that I know of, maybe more. I think it's time to take that $70,000 and use it to lower that $80-something thousand figure. Give us a $14,000 number that we need to find in reductions in the budget, which I think we can easily do, and come in with a flat funded budget, 0% tax increase, and call it good. I think that money's sitting there not being used. And with the interest that we're accruing on it, it's so minimal that I think it has more of an impact of keeping the tax rate flat and using that money now. And then and we still get away from using the undesignated fund surplus. And allow that account to just continue to increase. And whenever we have the reval or a major equipment purchase, capital purchase, we will have it in the undesignated fund balance that we can use. And I think when you think of it from a financial standpoint, I think it's time to make that move.
I don't totally disagree with that, but from a practical standpoint, that money was designated funds approved by the town, which means it would require a town approval to.
Absolutely.
move it from.
Yeah,
Right.
totally agree. We would have to go to the town and say, we want to take this $70,000 to keep your tax rate low.
Yeah. So I mean, you run into, you can build that as part of the budget, but if that gets defeated there, then then you're in a situation where now you've built a budget that you've lost $70,000 at the town meeting, which means now you've got to be able to recover from that and have the LD1 override vote ready to back that.
Yeah, you would
in the
have to
event
probably come back to a second town meeting with a whole new budget.
Not necessarily, because if you lost that, you had that sitting there as an availability, as a fallback position, then you could,
Then
so
you'd have to have an
if you defeat
override
that, then you
vote.
have to have the override vote there.
Yeah, but I have a lot of faith in this town where they would like to keep their tax rate flat versus having to do an LD1 override.
I'm saying, if you have to make an adjustment, if you follow the description, it's likely that you're going to be looking at some road bond work next year. So why do a little, I was talking to Joe about this, a little override this year, maybe
No,
next year's
yeah,
the year you
I
do
would
the
say
override.
the override would be better for next year.
Right,
because
but better for
we'll
next
need
year.
that to, if we do the bonding, then we'll need that to cover the bond payment.
The reason I created this problem, though, was because we had the competing interests, and I know Charlie has mentioned many times that we have said, and many times, and we have, that we're trying to get to zero, and we haven't. So this is how we come about it to this year, is to say, we're gonna try to crack the nut this year.
But it does get us down to that zero use of the fund balance, which gives you a lot more options going forward next year as to how to fund capital improvements or the fire department or road paving, or any of that thing. You know, this economy eventually is gonna turn around and you know, things will start happening and maybe revenues will pick up again. But I think this is a year where we can make what I think a very wise choice on using that 70,000, find ourselves $14,000 in cuts, and I think we could do that pretty easily when you look at this overall budget and then move forward.
Peter?
If you need a motion to that effect, I'll make it.
I figured you might.
I mean, you know, we're gonna talk the budget next week as part of our discussion. I wanted to throw it out there so you're all thinking about that possibility of doing it that way.
Charlie?
And just from a mechanical standpoint, Louise, I guess there's a process. I don't know how far we've got ourselves to not being able, because we'd have to have a public hearing in order to, no?
No.
In order, that wouldn't be a
Public
change.
hearing for what?
In order to
Take that money?
take that money?
No, it just has, it would have to be
It'll be a
approved
town
at the
meeting
town
vote.
meeting.
The town meeting
It would have
itself
to be, it would have to
constitutes
be a
public
warrant
hearing.
article,
Right.
Right.
because essentially you're taking, you've got a designated fund, and you're now changing the purpose of that designated fund.
So if that's the case, then there's no notices that have to go
No,
out.
because the town meeting is a public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, it becomes, you're gonna have, you'll have to put it in as a warrant article.
I think that makes it easier.
Mike?
We do away with the undesignated fund balance borrowing that we've done. We pay 70 grand one time from this reserve account. We make some savings, 12,000. Next year, Don starts the budget, he's 70,000 short on revenue. So effectively, what we've done is, all we've done is taken whatever 12,000 in cuts, because the revenue's not there. So you gotta make up the revenue next year. It's no different than taking it out of the undesignated fund balance.
Well, and the fact that
You're using money.
I mean, essentially, what you're doing is you're using that as an income line.
Right.
Saying,
One time.
okay, it's a one-time income line, but at some point, your excise, I mean, excise has gotta start, has gotta reverse course and start coming back out, I mean, it's, at some point, you hope that you're gonna go into recovery, which the income line starts to come back up, and if it does that offset the 70,000? I don't know.
I just wanna be clear that it's a one-time use of, and I'm gonna use the word gimmick, which is no different than using undesignated fund balance. It's a different explanation.
Well, I mean, essentially, it's, I mean.
So it doesn't help Don.
Essentially, it's using undesignated
Yeah.
Undesignated funds, it was a designated fund.
Right, but it doesn't help.
Essentially, you're still using, you're
It
still.
doesn't help Don in his budget development next year. He's still 70 grand short.
Unless he can project higher income.
Unless he can, right, unless he can project higher income.
Right.
But it doesn't do away from use of undesignated fund balance. We could put it any way we want to say it. We do use the dedicated funds, which I agree with the premise. I just want to make sure we don't think a year from now, oh, we got rid of that at zero. We didn't, if we do this.
Right.
So, 2 quick questions on the reevaluation. Just making sure I understand. In Maine, you are not triggered on a time, it's just when you go across a percentage.
Right, and according to and there's different opinions of this, you know, our past assessor had a different view of it, but our present assessor looks at the quality rating, he looks at, you know, the data that comes from the state, you know, the sales analysis data, and he says, he thinks that we're in good shape, and he doesn't see the level of inequities that would cause us to do an adjustment downward revaluation, let's say. We're all within orders of magnitude where we ought to be, where as far as the state's concerned, in good shape. He thinks that we should hold and stay and doesn't see the need for one in the foreseeable future. Now, the previous assessor didn't see it quite that way, so, but I'm telling you how our current assessor sees it.
We're at 101% valuation right now.
Which is good.
Now, the threshold for the state is 70%.
Oh, 70, okay.
Okay, so we're a long way from getting
Or
there.
120
What's the
something.
cost
Right.
of doing a full reevaluation?
Probably 400,000
All of that.
or more.
The one thing, the concept of saving a little at a time is the way this town, as I understand it, well before I got here, did things. I mean, that's the way you guys did the school, and there's something to be respected for that. And there's something that, I guess I kind of go back to what Mike's just saying about kind of, you know, there's a little bit of shuffling the thing. I mean, if you want to go this way, then just take it out on designated funds. I mean, because essentially it's the same kind of thing. You are taking a chunk of money that has been allocated. Now, having said that, I also recognize, you know, we're trying to do the right things here. Is there some hybrid model? So you say, let's be respectful of the fact that there's been money saved for a specific purpose, and rather than taking it from 70 to 0, is there something that could be done where you're still saying, we think it's going to be 10 years, and therefore, because otherwise you have to start saving next year.
Well,
Call it 10 years from now. I mean, you're still, then that's $7,000 a year you have to put into a fund.
Yeah, most towns have gone away from these, which are describing, and it is true that Raymond historically did what's called capital reserve budgeting. Set aside money, accumulated over a period of years, and interestingly, of course, the people who pay into that fund may not be around to enjoy the eventual improvement, you know, 15, 20 years down the road when you save the money. One issue. The cost of what you're buying increases every year, and so you have to figure the time value of money. Are you earning interest enough to park that money? And do you have higher and, you know, greater needs in the community that you could put that money to, like tax relief in the instant situation? You know, so you get all those arguments, but what it comes down to in the end is, with all due respect to the Raymond way, so-called, that's really not the modern way. The modern way is bond when you need it.
The modern way is an environment where we're heavily in debt in many parts.
Yeah,
This
well,
is the modern way of doing things.
No, that's not true. Raymond
Not in Raymond, I'm saying.
Raymond is
The
among the
modern way of doing
lowest
things in
levels
this
of
world
debt.
is to create unbelievable deficits, which we're now feeling the pain of,
Yeah, we don't do that.
nationally and at the state level.
Yeah, we don't do that. We're not even within a
Yeah, if you look at where we are with our debt load, we are so low.
No,
we
no,
have lots of capacity.
I'm not, because I think that's been the Raymond way, is that we have eschewed.
Right, but even if we did every single thing that we wanted to do and bonded it, which we're not going to, but let's say we did every single thing we can think of, we wouldn't even be at 5% probably of what our theoretical limit is. This town runs on the margin, always has very low level of bonded indebtedness.
I think that's great.
Yeah, and so this it changes it slightly. I guess you could say it's one of those things we could argue, well, it's a little pregnant maybe, you know. But I think in this day and age, you know, maybe the old Carlton Edwards way, as I called it, you know, the kitchen cabinet approach. With all due respect to him, you know, save for a fire truck and $10,000 a year. You get to the fire truck you need in 10 years, but now it costs $150, so you buy you buy the truck that you don't want because you don't have enough money. I don't know.
Yeah, if you were getting a good interest rate return on your investment.
That's fair.
That's one thing.
That's fair.
This
I
money's
understand
just
that.
sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
And if I may, we haven't added to it, Brian. We're not it's not like we're committed savers like maybe more Americans should be, that every year we've been committing money to this fund. We haven't been.
So that fund was at zero when we did the last reevaluation, and then it was
What happened was, a previous Board of Selectmen made it a priority. They said, rather than have the shock of a revaluation all at once, let's save and reserve, and so we have money towards a complete reval, or maybe a market adjustment. So maybe we don't do a complete reval, we maybe get half the price of a reval and do some market adjustments. So that was the approach of the previous assessor, and frankly, the underlying reason why he's not with us anymore, because his model is based on doing revals and the full service approach, doing updates, doing revals. The current assessor doesn't do revals, and he's just looking at it straight line. Do you need to do it right now? And I think even Mike would say, no, you don't need to do it right now. Could you argue that you need to do some adjustment? Yeah, you could argue that. Mike could argue one way, this other guy could argue Kurt another way. So that's an opinion piece.
But one of the other things you need to know is that our overlay is something like 190,000 for abatements. We're not even getting close to that right now. So next year, we have to budget for that as part of the undesignated fund balance. We may be able to get our abatement money, our overlay, down to $100,000, and that could be ample enough. We now have another $91,000 in the undesignated fund balance.
The way you're headed right now, if they do that, and that's what Kurt's going to recommend, a low overlay comparative to previous years, and I won't get into all the reasons for that, but it's going to be lower, his recommendation, you're going to end up with another tax cut, I believe.
Okay.
And remember, we have the school budget. They're getting a $500,000 more in GPA this year than last year. I mean, there's a very good chance we could have another tax reduction.
Short term, I think you're right. But long term on the schools, I think we're going to see trajectories up. I don't think you're going to get the state and federal funding that you've had. Am I wrong?
Hard to say.
Okay.
On the assessing, the reserve account, the reason we set that up after we finished the last appraisal was, or the last reassessment was, it looked at that point as though within a 7-year
Because
period.
of that trajectory that we had.
Within a 7-year period,
That's
we
a
were
fair
going to have
point
to go through reevaluation, so we started putting aside for it. Now, with where things are, that barrier keeps moving out and out and out, and, we're probably at the 7 to 10 year frame again. If we get to the point next year where things start to, and we have to look at it and say, well, in 5 years we may have to do it, then we'll have to, readdress that. But that was the reason we stopped funding into that 3 years ago.
Okay.
Charlie?
A couple of points. One thing I did hear from Kurt LaBelle when he interviewed for the position is that the market adjustment, he's going to be in a much better position, or feels as though he'll be in a much better position with the way he collects the data and his the programming. He's very very well connected with the vision appraisal model, and he's pretty much indicated that we'll be able to see some potential savings from the way he collects his data to lessen the impact, whether it's a market adjustment or a full reval.
Right, I think he's going to do a demonstration on that fairly shortly with the selectmen, and I think you'll be surprised about that. He's
And
kind of a vision expert.
And so that's the positive nature of where we've been going as a management team to try to put ourselves in the position, and I think we've disagreed as to what to call it, the Raymond Way, or are we lucky? I call it good management, and it's taken us a while to congeal as a group to do that, and I understand Mike's concern, because if you go back to the history of Raymond, we've done more things by contentious consensus than by working together as a body that says on a year-to-year review, our fiduciary responsibility is for this year, this budget. None of us want to be put in the position of being the Wall Street analyst saying, oh, the market's going to be like this or the schools are going to be like that 5 years from now. We look at pretty much what we're elected to do, which is to manage this, or micromanage it, some may say, but we're dealing with the data that's in front of us, and it doesn't preclude saying that this year you get a flat mill rate. Next year, if we need $400,000 for a reval, if we need a new fire engine, I don't see the people in this town on an override, when you make them the right case for the right job and how you're spending their money, they're gonna say no. I feel that. And
Yeah, that's a good point, and clearly I'm the new kid on the block, so I'm just kind of asking the questions, and you guys have set a standard of working very, very hard to create a flat budget, so I don't think anybody in town is questioning where where the mindset is, so.
You're absolutely right, though. I mean, even though you're relatively new to town, I mean, I'm relatively new to town, but not to Maine. But you're absolutely right. That is the model of old budgeting, the historic model.
Well, but the other thing that came into play there was 15 years ago, when we were looking at CIPs and things like that, and starting to put some money aside. First of all, you're getting paid interest on the money that was sitting there. Secondarily, if we went and took a bond out, it was at 17 or 18%. So you had the double whammy there. Now you're looking at a bond at what, 5-6%?
No,
if you're lucky.
So I mean, at that point, it no longer makes sense. So you have to look at it in where we were at a given time. So
With the current interest rates, it really makes no sense. But I'll tell you, there was a time in Maine municipal government not so long ago that you could borrow money and invest it at a significant rate. You remember those days? And a thing called arbitrage, it's a great world. Borrow someone else's money, invest it, and make money. We used to do that way back. No more.
And then California came.
Towns would get preferential borrowing rates, and then they'd reinvest it.
Probably in Japan, too.
Okay.
I just want to make one comment. I think it's a good idea. I just don't think we should be in a position of picking all the low fruit when that economy is down. And is this the only stagnant account that we have that we're considering moving, or are there other stagnant accounts that we can consider move, or you know what I'm saying?
I think this has been the big piece of fruit.
Okay.
And
you don't want to strip the tree.
Right.
Okay. County tax, do we want to talk about that?
Well, I do want to make the comment that, sorry, can I make, sorry.
Yeah.
And then I promise I'm going to shut up. The registry of deeds, if there's indeed a $4,500 cost that we didn't used to, it actually is not, in fact, dropping.
Right.
Just something we should make note of, in terms of there's been a bit of movement on that, too.
Okay, Peter.
What you intend to do with that idea, which I think is a good one, that the chairman mentioned.
We don't do anything with it yet.
You have a voting meeting. You'll go to your voting meeting
guess
as will the
what?
Board of Selectmen.
We have not
The
been.
Board of Selectmen will vote
At this point,
on a budget and bring it back to you for your vote.
because at this point, we don't have a budget to vote on.
Right.
What we have, the purpose of us all coming together for this meeting is to, essentially, is something we started doing a number of years ago. We used to each have individual meetings where we went through this whole thing, but it didn't make any sense to have the department heads and whatnot have to come to two separate meetings to give the same presentation, so we started having a joint meeting. But from here, now the select board will take the budget, they'll go through, make their final recommendations, and that's what gets presented to us. Now, at that point, we make a recommendation on each of their warrant articles. We can either accept their recommendation, make a different recommendation, or whatever. And then that's what goes to the town meeting.
Okay, could we should come up with a different.
We can have for that line item, they could say, we recommend $10, and we can say, no, we recommend $8, or we recommend $12. And then when it comes to town meeting, when the motion goes to the floor, if there's a difference in what we have, in the two recommendations, whoever makes the motion will move one of those two numbers. And then that's what will be voted on at the town meeting. So at this point, it's information gathering. When we come to the next meeting, what will happen next is once the select board goes through the budget and comes up with their recommendations, that's what will get transmitted to us, and then when we have our meeting, that's what we'll vote on.
Thank you.
So, if I may, just specifically though, Peter, if I understand this correctly, if we were going back to the reval warrant article, that would be generated, that recommendation would come from the Board of Selectmen, which I'm not sure if there's enough time to get that on the March 6th
We're doing budget on
We're
March
doing
6th.
budget, so it could be included there, and then that would be part of your package to,
Yeah, because, I mean, ultimately, it's gotta get converted into a warrant article.
Right.
And the warrant article is what the recommendation goes against.
We're all fine on timelines for that, no issues.
TIF, did we wanna,
You wanna keep going?
yeah, well, we're almost done.
Okay. I'm ready to quit.
You
Okay,
can't quit before we're done.
There's a
It's not
proposed,
allowed.
what's that?
You can't quit before we're done, it's not allowed.
I thought about it.
Not the Raymond one?
There is a proposed reduction of the 9490 in the TIF amount due to valuation reductions in the quarter. The actual amount will not be known until commitment. Kurt LaBelle is going to review all that, but we got, as I said, a generous offer from our attorney, our town attorney. She's willing to give us a preliminary review and give us an outlook as to what she could do to maximize, optimize, improve our TIF, and so we're looking at that right now. So, not this year, but in a subsequent year, we may be able to do something with that. And we're getting close to the renewal date. What's the renewal date? Well, anyway, we can find that out, but we're getting close, and so Shauna Cook-Mueller, our attorney, is going to look at all that and give us some
At no
recommendations.
cost.
At no cost. But of course, if we decide to do it, it's one of those
Yeah.
Yankee way things. She's going to look at it. If there's something she can do, then maybe we negotiate a deal.
But I mean, you said before, on the sign, I would think that's a logical spot. If we can get additional funds into the TIF, that's where, I mean, it fits the requirements that we wrote into the TIF, so.
Right.
There, and that would be a spot to put it where it has the least impact on
And if you want to talk about a reserve account, I mean, it may be worth putting it into a reserve account. If we could come up with 95,000 and put 10,000 into a reserve for a sign, and then next year put another 10,000 in and buy the sign, maybe a way of doing it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a logical place for it to be because it certainly meets the requirements of the TIF. so.
Well, what's happening with the sign, interestingly, is
We're
that
talking about an electronic sign.
the technology is advancing. The price is not dropping like a stone, but it is dropping as time goes on, and the technology is improving, so.
So if we wait long enough, they'll pay us to put it in.
Probably. Okay, ready for the non-property tax revenues?
Yep.
Slight increase in some of the line revenues accounts such as cable franchise fees, Crown Castle lease, assuming the current contract stays in place. We are talking, the selectmen are talking about options to do with that, which could, depending on which way they go, result in a significant infusion of cash or a change in the arrangement with an increased payment. So that's something that's on the next agenda if you're interested in hearing that debate, discussion. Let's see, decreases are anticipated in fire, ambulance collections, interest income. There's, obviously, we talked about this ad nauseum, but no undesignated fund balance included in the proposed budget, so there's a resulting total decrease in revenues of $79,380. So that's the sad news in revenues, but I'm of the mind that, and I kind of jumped the gun, I think, in my intro letter, because it ain't happening, and then I saw the state economic projections come out like the next day. I called Joe and said, well, maybe I would have written that differently if I'd waited a day. But I was feeling optimistic the day that I wrote it, but maybe not this year, but I do think eventually we're coming out of this. Don't hold me to it, though. And we're going to see increased excise taxes and things like that again. I really believe that.
Where are we on late payments? Have we seen any?
We're right where we've historically been in terms of collections. Is that the question?
Yeah, collections are,
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you want to hit that one?
We're like 96.1%.
Yeah, there's no difference on that.
Well, I'm the one that asked that question, and the reason I asked it is because the town report in '05 showed a very, very small amount passed through taxes.
Did you get the answer to that?
No.
It looks like some clerical error or something. That's a very wrong amount. It should have been almost 300,000.
Right. And of course, now the reports are being done at a different time of year to coincide with the change in the moving the town report up. And I think the report we do now is more comprehensive, but there was actually a detailed answer that went out to you, Ralph, on that.
Based on what you just said, we have historically been around
Did you
200,000
get that
to
one?
300,000
Yes.
in past due. Okay, that makes more
Did
sense.
you get that one? Did you get that answer? Yes. Okay, we'll send that back out again. You have it? Okay, you wanna just hand it down?
Yeah.
All right, it went out.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Something.
I haven't seen it.
We're being a lot more aggressive on tax acquired property also.
Well, there were two reasons for that. One, are we spending the right amount of time and the right amount of personnel in that? And the other one is anything in the elderly, because I know we had an elderly issue, and how much of that in fact is elderly issues? Do we have any idea on that?
I don't know.
Okay, now I'm gonna drop the issue then, okay. Thank you.
We don't have the database that
Yeah.
would tell us that.
I know historically, we've been in at less than 5%.
Yeah, we have a very, very
Yeah.
high collections rate. You know, there may be some higher, but we're right up there.
Because that also gets to the heart of where you are on override and things
Yeah,
like
right.
that, too.
Income stream.
Well,
Any other questions?
I'd like to thank you all, and hopefully it was okay. I'm not feeling so great tonight, so it wasn't my best night, but hopefully it was all right. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing else? Just review, our next meeting is April 2nd. Select Board has theirs in March, ours is April 2nd, so. If there's no objections, the meeting is adjourned. Even if there are objections, the meeting is adjourned.